All right, Jim.
Morning, Jack.
Good morning, Mr. West. Say hello to the internet. You're live.
We're live. Hello, internet listeners.
As I always say, we're the weird part of the internet. This is like the weird stuff you stumble upon somehow or other. Like you're clicking on things, you're not even paying attention to what you're clicking on, and then you end up on this live stream.
Yeah, right? That's kind of crazy. And you start getting calls from all these strange people.
So, thanks for coming down here today and being our in-studio guest for episode 7 of the actual stream of the actual name of the stream is Murphy's Law, but we're changing the name to be something a little less narcissistic. I put it to the voters, to our supporters, a couple of different names to see which one they liked, and it looks like we're going with the Team House.
The Team House.
Yes.
It's definitely a Team House. I like it. It's got that appeal.
So that is kind of what we're going to be working with, and I'm going to have some graphics made up to do all of that kind of stuff.
You're going to have to get some camouflage.
Man, I'm still a little out of focus on here. I don't know why that is. I'm going to try to dial it back in. But anyway, Jim, since this is your first time coming on here, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about, your background and who you are.
My background. How far back?
Well, I mean, you and I have known each other for a while now.
Right.
And we met through a mutual friend.
Right.
In Manhattan.
Danny,
yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. I'm in the construction industry now, and I do safety, which is a long way away from combat arms and special operations. And in some respects, and other respects, a lot of similarities, but I can explain that later. But I was doing a safety orientation on one of our projects, and this guy at the end of the safety orientation goes, "Are you James Smokey West?" And I'm like, "Who the hell are you?" "Well, my name's Danny." I said, "Well, come into my office and explain to me, right, what this is all about." We walk in, and Danny's a unique guy, as you know. He seemed to know more about me than I knew about myself. He's never been in the military, but he's definitely an enthusiast. "Oh yeah, you're James Smokey West." And he says, "Have you ever met Jack Murphy?" And I said, "Jack Murphy? Who the heck is Jack Murphy?" It's all kinds of people I don't know now. And, Jack Murphy, he writes books, he does this and that, podcasts.
Tales of a Man Named Jack Murphy.
Yeah, Murphy's Law, Army Ranger, 75th Ranger Battalion, and all these direct action missions. And so, I said, "Well, yeah, let's meet him." And I think between both you and me, Jack, you're like, "Well, who the hell's the guy Jim West?" Before you met me, and I'm like, "Well, who the hell's the guy Jack Murphy?" Right?
I'm always happy to meet any of, our boys, any SF guys or retired dudes that are kicking around the city. I'm always happy to take those kinds of meetings. But I had no idea what to expect.
Right.
I had no idea who you were.
Right. Well, a lot of times it's like there's so many posers out there and people that make up stories about, what's real and what's not, just to get attention. And we both met a number, because you're in the
That's for sure.
social media industry, you probably met more than I am, because I just kind of don't pay attention that much. But so anyway, a week later we got together for lunch, if I'm not mistaken, and we sat down and got to know each other a little bit, and I thought that was cool. It was a good first meeting, and then we met a week later, and I felt like, well, half the stuff sounds like bullshit, Who's James Smokey West, and let's see, you used to do a lot of street fighting, you used to train professional fighters, you train UFC fighters, you're a combat veteran from 7th Special Forces Group, from Desert Storm, who wasn't represented, right? And then you're a Halo, scuba, sniper. It kind of starts sounding like bullshit after a while. So for our third meeting, I remember I just went home and said, "Look, instead of trying to explain all this stuff, I just brought in my DD-214 and a stack of certificates about an inch thick or so, and I thought Jack was pretty unique. I didn't realize he was probably a speed reader. I actually knew what he was looking at. So he just started, jump school, this, that, just flipping through these certificates like he really didn't give a damn, and all of a sudden he just stops. He goes, Desert Storm? 7th Troop wasn't represented in Desert Storm, and I was immediately impressed. I'm like, well, that's true, but they were, because I was, and, so, who am I? I'm a guy that, grew up, youngest of a couple of brothers and sisters, and my cousins lived next door, and all but one brother and my cousins were all in special forces. Of course, I was still in high school, and while I was in high school, my
Oh, look who's here.
have a guess. Hey, how's it going? So I'm
Dave, you park it right there, and I'll bring you in frame.
good to see you. So Jack is asking kind of a little bit about who I am. So
Who is this
The
weirdo?
man, the myth, the legend.
yeah, that guy, the legendary.
I think I'm competent enough to do this on the fly now while we're streaming. Go ahead, keep going, Jim.
So anyway, my brothers, one was in Vietnam, the other was in special forces at the time. It's the late '60s, early '70s, late '60s. And my special forces brother used to bring guys home from the team. They were coming back from Fort Bragg and Thailand and other places. So I always felt like, man, this is what I really want to do, And of course, I didn't realize you had to finish high school.
Dave, scoot you in a little closer to Jim.
Right. We like that.
My pleasure.
There you go. Attaboy.
So, I'm like, yeah, this is really what I want to do. And then my 3 cousins were also in special forces. One of them was actually one of the members of Blue Light. The other 2 were team medics. But and by the way, they're all passed away today. I guess on one hand, I'm glad I'm the youngest, because when I was really young, I wanted to follow in their footsteps, but they never found out how to stop drinking and smoking along the way, and I gave up most of that years ago to pursue the fight training and things of that nature. But so anyway, I got into high school. It was in my junior year. I was 17 years old, and I wasn't feeling thrilled. I was in a Catholic military high school, the same one actually that Russell Wilson, a quarterback for the Seahawks, went to, but obviously different time frames. But I had amassed so many demerits and everything over Christmas. My mom comes in and goes, and we're talking to the father and the priest, and well, in order for him to get through school, he's got to stay after school. He's got to work off these 300 something merits. And I'm just drifting into the no man's land. My mother looks at me and goes, I said, look, you know what? Can I just drop out of school and join the Army and be like my brothers? And she's like, yeah, we just packed up and left here. She's ready to kick me out of the house by now, right? And get rid of all these problems, because it's funny, actually, I joined the Army in 10 December 1972, with 0 direction. I just wanted to leave home, and I didn't want to return home a failure, and I wanted to be like my brothers. And my mom always used to say, hey, Smokey, that's the nickname I got when I was born. The house burned down, and as an end result, she said that the neighborhood crime reduced by 80% once I joined the military.
What were like most of your demerits for, and what kind of trouble were you getting into at home and things like that?
Oh, good Lord. Failure to follow instructions, a lot of fighting, skipped school a few times, I didn't want to behave. I just had a lot of energy, and actually, what I failed to tell you, that was my 3rd high school, because I got kicked out of all the rest of them for fighting as well, and skipping school and misbehaving.
Now, was your brother, was he a scrapper too when he was growing up?
No, my brother was a track star,
Okay.
and the other one was kind of weird. He was like the intellectual. He actually became a computer. He could build mainframe computers, but he ended up going to Vietnam, and I guess on his downtime, they had him couriering mail sacks back around between the different organizations. And come to find out, he got busted because some of the guys were shipping some marijuana and other drugs from, which at the time he didn't know much about, but he got busted, and they sent him up to the 5th Mechanized Unit, and he's up there clearing the way before the 101st. They're out there with 50 cal machine guns. got wounded a few times, got all screwed up in Vietnam, and because he wasn't the warrior class like me and my other brothers and cousins, he kind of got strung out on drugs and it lasted until the day he died a few years ago. But he was a really good guy, a real smart guy. And he you know, they got mortared sometimes weeks on end and 24 hours a day. And whenever the VC would take a break in that action, they would take a day or half a day or a few hours to dig their buddies out of the foxhole next to us. It had a real significant impact on him. I never forget when he came home. I was still in high school. He was 130 pounds, 6'1", just all PTSD, which he never acknowledged till maybe a year and a half before he actually died.
Yeah.
But it was a little late then. But anyway, I stayed in the Army for a while, a couple of years, and I got out because I'd gotten involved with some in Germany. I got involved with some fighters, right?
They're gonna pick that up on the mic. Is this vibrating?
Yeah. Well. So at any rate, I when I went to Germany, I met a guy named Ronald McKenzie. I started getting involved with Tai Chi Chuan Wushu. It's kind of like yoga with punches behind it. And I started getting in these point tournaments and stuff and doing kata forms and point fighting. I was pretty good at it. I was a little skinny rat, but I was good at it. In fact, after my first month of the instructor, Ronald McKenzie, came back and handed me my money back. I thought he was kicking me out of class, like everybody else did. But he said, "Man, you're so good. I'm not going to charge you for these martial arts lessons. It's a privilege to train you." And actually, today I'm a 10th degree black belt, and I have my own martial arts system, which has been sanctioned through Jerry Pennington and back to Japan. I mean, it's legit, right? Which we will be rolling out later. I'm working on all the documents and books now and stuff, and training program of instructions. But so with that said, I've never paid for a karate lesson or martial arts lesson in my life, and I'm a bona fide certified guy, right? And it's kind of like dropping out of school. I have one thing in my brain. I never want to go home a failure. So it's just the same thing we all subscribe to. Don't quit. So you just hang in there.
Greg Walker wanted me to ask you a question to break your balls a little bit about the guy who taught you everything you know.
Oh my God! So here we go. I was scouring my Facebook, which I do about 5 minutes a week, and I saw that Greg Walker had taken his time and done his due diligence to look at the Gary O'Neill's book, American Warrior, and he's made a statement, and he countermanded it and basically says Gary's lying about all these things. And I've always been suspicious about Gary, but Gary didn't. I've heard through the mill that Gary's telling people that he's taught me everything I know about martial arts. I can't attest to all the other stuff, but it's very credible. I can tell you that Gary O'Neill didn't teach me a friggin' thing about what I know about martial arts, so that would be a lie.
Well, who are some of the people who really did teach you and mentor you over the years? I think you mentioned your first introduction in martial arts.
I did.
But you've also mentioned over the years Bill Wallace,
Joe
Lewis.
Yeah. So basically, I have a street fighting book coming out probably in the next 90 days. It's about street fighting, but actually it's going to break down all the technical fight principles, which are legit. Joe Lewis originally wrote them. In 1975, I fought in the European International Championships in Berlin, Germany.
So this is about 3 years after you started, or when did you?
No, I started before I left home, but it was more like backyard boxing stuff we learned from books. And, don't kick sand in my face. But we just tested a lot of stuff out the hard way. Without formal training. And my first formal training was kung fu stuff in Europe, right?
In Germany. And how did you end up in Germany? How did that happen?
How did that happen? I wanted to be close to my brothers.
Okay.
And so one of my brothers was in Germany, so I pulled a few strings and I ended up going to Germany.
Okay.
And I got my high school diploma while I was in Germany from Kaiserslautern High School, some military program. So I got a real high school diploma. Remember, I wanted to get
GED,
right? No, I had
GID.
No. When I dropped out of school, I went down to the induction station, and they weren't even going to let me in the military because I didn't even have GED. So they took it back then. They take you to the back room, take your GED. I aced it, That 12 o'clock midnight, I'm on a friggin' bus to Fort Campbell, Kentucky on 10 January, where it's like 10 friggin' degrees out there being screamed and hollered at. I'm like, here you're on the next leg of the journey, right? But anyway, when I got to Europe and I started, I mean, we were living and breathing, we were doing yoga and meditating, and Bruce Lee became my idol. I memorized every word, every movie, every move I was mimicking and copying. So, and we were fighting every day in the gym and stuff. And I started drinking a little bit and getting a few fights at night, you know. But and in 1975 in the European International, I met Bill Wallace, and he was he may not even remember those days, but he was very instrumental. And also there was some guys that fought the first big long kickboxing match, and I was pretty thrilled about that. And they had these Australian demo teams. I mean, it was really a thrill to be there. I met Heidi Ochai, he's in DC now. And these guys were just, the guys you read about, you know, I'm like, holy cow, they're here.
Yeah.
I got to meet them. Just wanted me to do more, right? I always want to do more.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think every tournament fight that I ever fought, I either knocked the guy out or I got disqualified. My first 2 kickboxing matches. So I found out later in life it wasn't for me. But I got out of the military in 76 to fight pro. Like I said, it wasn't, you know, I wasn't making any money. I was training with a guy named Danny Wilson, who him, Jerry Pennington, Joe Louis, they were all kind of intertwined in the American open style karate systems. So I got out, I took whatever I learned in the military. You know, back in the day, you know, when you go through basic training, hand to hand was, you know, bayonet training, kill. You know, so my mind was formed very early that harming people was okay, right?
So I think, weren't you already there before you got in the military though?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, you know, it's interesting because I was playing football from grade school and junior high and high school, and I was on a swim team since I was 5. And as you hit those pre-teens and stuff, my neighborhood buddies were starting to experiment with drugs and stuff, and I didn't feel like that was for me. So the first time some kid in the neighborhood got busted for marijuana, and I was the only guy not using it, they blamed me as ratting them out and narking them out, as we would say back then. And that was bullshit. So then next thing you know, I'm riding my bicycle down the street, and 3 or 4 of them jump out to whoop my ass. And, you know, so yeah, it was a fight early in life, you know. So,
Yeah. And I mean, I think that probably a lot of our listeners or watchers are like, they're younger. So Bill Superfoot Wallace, and like, you know, we used to read Black Belt magazine all the time. That was what that in comics. I mean, that's what I read when I was growing up, and you know, like that's how you found out about these guys. And they were like they were as, I don't know if they were as famous as like Horace and Horace and Grace. I don't know.
Oh, back in the day, yeah.
They were, for the people interested in that, they were Benny the Jet Urquidez. Yeah.
Well, back in those days, you know, Joe Louis, Bill Superfoot, they were it. You know, I mean, and Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
So they all came together under Robert Trias, who back in 1946 or 7, he was kind of like me in the sense that he was very formal, traditional martial arts, Japanese styles. He get in a lot of trouble, a lot of street fights. So he went to Japan, he learned all this shoot fighting and stuff, and brought it back, and he founded the American Open Style Karate System. Who now Jerry Pennington, a guy named Roger Dabney, like 1 and 2. Who, by the way, Roger is adopted me now as his formal trainer. So I've promoted him recently to his 8th in this system, but he is a 10th I've known Roger since he was a teenager. Yeah.
So how did you go from something like Tai Chi Chuan and Wushu, which are very, like Tai Chi Chuan is very, one would say soft, and circular, and Wushu is very kind of formal, into more like the aggressive sort of.
Well, that's what happened. So I got out of the military, I went back home to fight. I didn't know where to go or what to do. I'm driving around the neighborhood, and I seen this little, it's about twice the size of this room, or maybe the size, maybe twice the size. And it said American kickboxing. Oh, that'll work. So I crawled in there, and there were a bunch of guys that are very non-traditional, wearing cut-off shorts and T-tops and sweating and dirty, and it stunk, and they're beating the crap out of each other. This guy, Danny Wilson was his name, who became my trainer at the time, said, hey, you want to work out with us? Yeah, just warm yourself up. These guys are killing each other. I mean, it used to be bare knuckle, and it just came out with safety punches. So these guys were punching extra hard because they didn't think they could hurt you with safety gear on, you know. And so Keith Hayflick at the time was the United States Karate Association's United States light heavyweight title holder. He could have been Kermit the Frog for all I knew. Anyway, so I'm stretching out, and they started razzing on me because I had that Bill Wallace flexibility and stuff. Oh, it's Bill Wallace, haha, this stuff, right? And I'm like, you know. And so I got up there, and this guy just started waylaying me, you know. He just picked up my kicks, punched me all in the face, knocked me on the ground. I'm trying to get up, he's still kicking and punching me. So I went ballistic, and we got in like a street fight. And Danny Wilson, he broke us up, you know. And look, if you want to learn this stuff, you got to learn how to box. And I refuse to take a bruise or a cut without going back into the fire.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
just my makeup. It's in my, I'm wired that way.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it until then. I used to fight a lot when I was a kid. And I was scared to lose because I'm afraid you die if you lose.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're gonna fight. And so with that said, you know, I came back the next day, and he says, if you're gonna do that, you need to learn how to box. So they had a place back then in the mid-70s called the Broad Street Boxing Gym. So 2 nights a week, it looked like an old Rocky movie. You know, I go in there, and you know, it's got these old hardcore guys. I mean, one of these boxing coaches fought Dempsey, for God's sake.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
And these are old guys, you know, their hands are like steel.
Yeah.
But they knew all the basics, this stuff. It's before Muhammad Ali revolutionized all the footwork to the level that he did and ring savviness. But you know, it's a transitional time in martial arts and boxing, I think. And so, you know, you're gonna bob and weave rope. I thought I was really great already. You know, for the first 6 weeks, you just learn how to push slide, how to step, how to bob and weave, how to throw a jab, then before they even let you spar. I mean, you know, they teach you footwork by working, you know, they put foam, 2-inch foam in the boxing rings covered by canvas, and so it's like working out in a mud puddle, you know?
Yeah.
And bouncing around on tires to get your rhythm down. And I tell you, those days, you know, I was like a sponge, because one, I don't like getting hit, you know, and I just believed. I never questioned anything. I think when we were younger, it's not like today, all the internet, you know, you question everything.
Yeah.
If you told me that was the right hand, that was the right hand.
Yeah.
And I would do it until it worked.
Yeah.
That's it. So I just practiced and practiced. I'd be up to midnight by myself, you know, just doing stuff, and all the, you know. So
you never had any doubts about boxing in the sense of, well, this isn't a martial art, or this because it's distinctly a Western tradition.
Well, you know, if you look at the martial art, like I said, take Hoist Gracie. Remember when he first came out in the ring, and it was style against style, not strategy against strategy, and you know, he's got that one hand out, and it was to create an obstacle so that people had to work around that hand to get to you.
Yeah.
And all I could visualize, you know, was way back in the day, the Marquis of Queensberry, you know.
Yeah.
So I said, well, there's a lot of science here that people just tend to overlook, you know. And of course, Bill Wallace and Bruce Lee types, they brought the kinesiology and kinetics into the game. You know, they broke down how the muscles work better, and you know, and then you get the Muhammad Ali influence on the footwork. And over the years, you know, I've always believed, like when the UFC first came out, I trained a couple of competitors for that. It was style against style.
Right.
These Gracie Jiu-Jitsu guys, and then your wrestlers were just cleaning house.
Yeah.
And all the way back then, I made the assessment. I said, you know, this is going to continue to evolve, because you give an American anything, they're just going to make it better.
Yeah.
And I said, eventually it's going to come back to the roots, to boxing.
Yeah.
And even though the wrestling is still a great part of it, the jiu-jitsu is still a great part of it, look at the fights today in the UFC versus then.
Yeah.
More and more of these fights, even world title bouts, going the distance and never going to the ground. So it's evolved back to, you know, basic pugilism, which is a martial arts.
100%. I think that it's interesting, because I think people have a tendency to overlook boxing as a martial art.
Just because we've been like propagandized now for, I feel like, that every fight ends up on the ground.
Yeah.
And so all we can do is ground fighting. And at least in the military, I think a lot of it is because of safety, really. They want you to do something that's safe.
Yeah. Right? Well, and it's also like jiu-jitsu, especially like the basics, you know, the first 12 moves or whatever. they're very easy to train up. They're very easy to give somebody a basic level of competence. Whereas, I mean, in boxing is also just to get a basic level of competence. Well, it takes a little bit longer. You think it takes a little bit more.
Well, my whole fight training mentality is what's effective, you know?
Right.
My stepfather used to tell me when I was growing up that a fight consists of 2 hits. You hit them and they hit the floor. So, and Bruce Lee made a comment years ago that, people always talk about what kind of punch, and he said when a punch becomes a punch, then you'll know,
Yeah.
So basically, I think the 5 basic, good balance, good boxing footwork, and your 5 basic punches. You don't have to get really extravagant.
Right.
Because when you punch, if you punch right, your defense is built into the punch. Now, you actually, in my new system that's called American Extension Fighting, which will be rolled out later, and it's already being developed behind the scenes in different ways. You have to shift your weight a little bit because of the leg kickers and the guys that will shoot on your legs. Because avoiding that takedown is huge.
Right.
If you expect this to work today.
Right.
Unless you just get off first, But, and then you gotta hope the guy can't take a punch or hit him flush. People that train every day, they're gonna see that flash movement. And there are very few people that can hit without telegraphing. They're rare, and I'm one of those rare guys, by the way. But outside of that, this becomes a contest really quick, right? It's nail biting, scratching the eyes.
So with your American, and I'm sorry, we can get back to your history in a bit, but with your American extension fighting,
right?
Okay, with the American extension fighting, like what would you say are the biggest influences in it? From obviously you have a wide range of training and experiences, plus other people coming back to you with their own stuff, and
Yeah, well, for me, I look at fighting like this. I disagree with the idea of whether it's for safety or for any other reason that the best, maybe most fights end up on the ground, and some people are now influencing it. That's a safe place to fight. But safe never entered the idea of fighting with me. So boxing has always been my base, even beyond the kung fu and the straight line. Because a straight punch is that, and a hook's a hook. Philosophically, it's all the same.
right.
It may not be as soft, but when you're working angles, it's like you're gonna combine the soft and hard. It's like I tell my son, if you don't have, if you can touch it, you can hit it. So we start blending this psychological aspects. But boxing is the basics, because in a bar room in the street, the last place you want to be is on the ground.
Sure.
In a battlefield, if there's not mortar rounds going off, and the last place you want to be, and if you're kicking doors, which now we're in the urban terrain, and you're running around a corner and you run into a room with 12 people where there was supposed to be 2, and it's a fisticuff, because you don't want to kill each other with your bullets, or you lost your gun coming around a corner. The last place you want to be is on the ground. I've ended up on the ground one time in a street fight, and I'm going to tell you, the guy that I ended up on the ground, I rolled him on top of me, I put him in a choke, and covered me, because all I could see is feet. And, drunks will stomp you in the head just for any reason. And that it's the last place you will ever want to be. If you want to know what to do if you have to go there, But so my first influence is really everything. But like you said, I've had so much exposure, through guys like Bill Wallace, Joe Louis, was instrumental. Even he and I had a controversial relationship because things we learned about each other along the way, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the Gary O'Neills of the world as well, whatever they do, and I'm sure he's told a bunch of lies in his life, it seems. The deal about that is people with that alpha dog personality, they're real protective of them. It's not just your surroundings, but it's like my karate versus yours. Mine's better than yours, mine's bigger than yours, whatever. It's not always the case, right? Or maybe it is. But if the case was the bigger, stronger guy could just always whoop my ass, then there'd be no need for martial arts.
Right.
So that soft stuff comes into play, right? With passing moves and getting behind angulation. But, if I'm moving all about you and we're getting in the mix and, that bell goes off and boom, I just know that right hand's gonna reach your jaw, it's coming. So you have to learn how to punch and burst and change gears really fast.
The other line of bullshit I feel is that now people, just trainers, instructors all over the place, everything has to be basic. You gotta keep it basic. Stand-up fighting, that's way too advanced. You can't do that. And it's like, who the fuck comes up with this stuff? I mean, you can go talk to Jim West. He'll teach you how to fight. I mean, you're not gonna be able to
You've been there.
You're not gonna be able to teach someone all the nuances of boxing or stand-up fighting in a day, of course, because there's a lot of philosophy and strategy that goes into it and technique. But I know that you can take a person from scratch and teach them how to throw a punch.
So easy enough, right? I mean, talk about basics, right? You've seen some, I think, some excerpts from my fight book that's coming out, the street fighting, and one of the things I mentioned is like the world's like 4.5 billion years old, and it wasn't about 2.5 million years ago we started walking upright, and then when we walked, it was left foot, left hand, kind of like a monkey or an ape. And as we continue to evolve, it's left foot, right hand, you know? But that's not how you punch. So when you punch, your weight, like if I want to throw a right hand, my weight's driving off the right foot. If I want to throw a left hook, my weight's driving off the left foot. So we got to get back to our Neanderthal roots to be a really good fighter, right? To make it effective. And then what I tell people is your elbows are sitting perpendicular underneath of your fist and also behind your punch, whether it's a straight punch or uppercut, you know, because when you're like this, you get weak and you also lose your defense. So things are perpendicular. So if you hold your elbows close to your side and your hands, you know, above your shoulders, Joe Louis said, just put your hands right here and just roll your elbows in. And, you know, then you got to create an angle. And all you got to do is just roll your hand over and back, right? So most people will say, don't lock your elbow, don't, it's very difficult, right? So I'll tell the guys, extend your hand, hit with the front two knuckles, and now back off. So if they're fully extended, it's 100%. Let's throw punches at 98%, because you never want to lock your joints out, right? Especially with these Russian arm bars and people hitting joints. So it's just pop, pop, and you focus more on getting your arm back, right, Jack? Boom, so just go boom, out back. And I call it the geometry of punching. Everything's on a line, so if it goes out and comes down, it's what I call swimming. As soon as that happens, bang, you get hit, right? So everything's got to be, and I can teach you that in one day, not even a day, 30 minutes to an hour. The stepping and coordination of the step takes a minute, but it's not that difficult to teach. What's hard to teach is people, is to put them under fire and make sure that they can stay relaxed when stuff is coming. So when people say it's too hard to learn or it's too much to learn, I live by one simple philosophy, is learn a lot and use a little. Because if all you learn is say 5 things, and your opponent just is on you like a windmill and going crazy, he's on PCP, and then he starts swinging ashtrays at you, you know, you're like, well, let's have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've exhausted all of those. What's next? What's next is, you know, panic breathing, panic brain, because I don't have any more options. But if you learn, you know, what you learned in Ranger Battalion, Special Forces, overseas, from me, from each other, and you go, hey, wait, I got 1,000 more things I can trick with here, right? So let me get myself in a stall position, because you can take punches and stall without getting compromised, without getting knocked out, right? And if you learn how to do that, it's easier to stay relaxed and keep your breath control under control by reaching that, having a lot of solutions that you can reach out into the atmosphere. Oh, listen, my right hand didn't work, maybe my elbow will. You know, maybe a headbutt will. You know, there's so many more tools. And the way I present that is, you know, you have a toolbox. And whether it's all Taekwondo or all Jiu-Jitsu or all MMA or all this or that it's going to fill up a layer in your toolbox. The American Extension Fighter wants to fill all those. I want to fill up your toolbox.
Your new book, the one that you've been working on, I mean, it's the toolbox, isn't it?
It
It's
is
like
the
a
toolbox.
how-to manual, right?
Yes, sir.
And so, I mean, what kind of stuff is going to be in there? Because you were telling me, we went out for coffee before this, you were telling me it's like going to be a street fighting manual.
Well, it's everything, man. It's geared to street fighting because there, you know, if you look at the way our world has changed, you know, call it socialism, communism, too much social media, too many people, Antifa out there, you know, there's crazies, criminals, crooks out there trying to mug you in the middle of the night. You call it what you want, progressive social, you know, in order to pay for all this stuff, they got to increase taxes, you know, all the, like on the surface, you know, Trump's created all this jobs and stuff, and one election that can turn around in 6 months. and it can turn around anyway based on different circumstances. So when people get poor, they blow up all these oil rigs and plants out in Saudi Arabia. And boom, you get a 5 to 10%, whatever, 15% spike in oil costs. You got to pay for that somewhere. I mean, most people in America are probably 30 to 60 days being out on the street. And so when you get hungry and you get poor, you get dangerous. You're dangerous. Poor people are just dangerous. And so the need to defend yourself is here right now. And so, yeah, it's a street fighting thing for anybody. The 90-pound girl. I mean, if you look at the statistics and all this stuff we brought out in the book, look at the number of college girls that have been raped, date rape. 70-80% of them.
It's crazy. I mean, not just like college girls, but like women in general. It's like 1 out of 4. I mean, the statistics are pretty damning.
It's terrible. I was a year ago doing a corporate seminar for a group, and I noticed that a couple of them said, "Can I bring my kids?" And usually I look at an older crowd. I said, "Bring your kids." And you got a 14-year-old son and a 19-year-old daughter, and the daughter, you could just read her body language. She wanted nothing to do with this. And so during the breaks and stuff, we'd talk, and so, the mom, dad, and me were talking, and she had been raped in college, and one of her friends got brutally raped, and she was horrified. By the end of that seminar, she was allowing us to put her in a mounted position from the guard and push off and scratch, and she was throwing punches. Yeah. I mean, I would push her and she would just crack it right in the chest hard as she could.
Yeah, Jim, you bring that out in women.
I do.
You really have a talent for it.
I have a talent for pissing people off. Because I always tell people, train angry, like euphoria, right? You're out in the bar and having a great time. One of my teaching points to my son, stop laughing so friggin' much and stop being everybody's friend. Listen, the more you laugh, the more euphoric you become, those blinders just close in. You don't see the danger, around you. All you see is what's in front of you and all this good stuff. I always teach people don't smile. My first coach.
I'm smiling right now.
He laughed on the inside.
Yeah.
Right? My first coach, he'd be sitting there and put you on the mitts and you're hitting. He said, "Good job smiling." If you smile back, he would take those mitts and those big old hands and boom, like knock life out of you, Never smile, when you're working. One of my previous very successful bosses years ago, he said, "Successful people don't smile." It doesn't mean they never smile.
Right.
When you're at work and you're in business, and listen, saving your life is business.
Right. If you smile because you're having a good time, it's a genuine smile, I think is one thing. But when you're smiling as sort of a social sort of, "Hey, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm okay, you're okay with me, I'm okay," yeah.
Well, I've had too many of the okay moments turn into a flash firefight. Like you're just talking, next thing you know, somebody's swinging.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, I can tell you from firsthand experience, I have a tendency to be too friendly to people, and then it, like in social settings or whatever, it invites trouble, and then you have to flip that switch, and all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, this wasn't who I just stepped up. Like, this isn't the guy that I thought I was talking to."
Oh yeah. Listen, I know for a fact that we are more than just people. We're actually guys and girls.
Right.
and there's testosterone involved in this game. And when you fuel that up with drugs and alcohol, and
desperation.
I mean, that thing that happened to my buddy in the Green Beret Sport Parachute Club, Dennis, years ago, who, by the way, I've recently reconnected with. We were sitting around a little group, and this story and all the nuances of the technical fight principles, what I did wrong, what I did right. But anyway, we're sitting around, his wife goes over to the bar, it's the old GB club, back by the old Army woman, back in the day, right? In fact, it was December 29, 1983. It was a turning point in my military life. So anyway, she goes back, "I'm gonna go get y'all guys a drink," and, just being sociable, we're having a good time. My back's to the bar, we just kind of circled up in our chairs. And Dennis gets, she'd been up there like 10 minutes, some guy's talking to her, and he's probably just gonna go help her with a beer. So, and this guy and him getting a discussion, next thing you know, this guy flips out an 8-inch blade and stabs Dennis right through the stomach, through and through, hits the main artery in the stomach.
Oof.
And everybody starts moving away.
Yeah.
And old Moses Flores, he's still alive today. He doesn't know his own name anymore, but he's in his 90s. Speaking about a hero of sorts, a brother. But he's the only other guy that would react and like, let's go save somebody's life, jump into the fire. I had no plan, nothing on my mind. I just looked over my shoulder, I'm like, holy crap. Jumped out of my chair. I still had the brown jacket today. There was a brown leather jacket that I had on the back of my chair. As I'm running over there, I grabbed this, and this guy took Dennis and stabbed him again through the hip. Hit another artery, 2 arteries. And Dennis is alive today. I think largely because of me and him. I think he feels the same way. I know he does, in fact. So by then I closed the gap, put my hand on the guy's shoulder. He turns around, this crazy look on his face, like that, no plan. I saw the knife, and I just dropped my coat on top of his head, right? And instead of stabbing me, he both hands went up here to clear his vision in his head. And I stomped across his ankle, Russian armbar straight to the floor, ripped the knife out of his hand.
Which is enough to take down most people.
Yes.
I've heard this story before.
Right.
So, but the guy gets back up. He pulled another knife out, right?
He went through a couple of knives, actually, which is kind of really weird. I'm sitting there, and I said, we did good. We got to take care of Dennis. And understand, this is just seconds. I mean, it's not a minute. This whole thing is just seconds. Somebody goes, he's got a knife, he's got a knife. And I looked at Moses, because Moses points to the table, the pool table, and the knife was laying on the table. I'm like, my mind is leaving the crowd.
Right.
And I looked over and I saw some shiny object in his hand. I'm like, now, I'm up to here. And I just pushed off of him, and he swung at me and missed. His back went to the wall, and I had that old paneling on the wall. Yeah. And when he missed, I hit him and cracked his head in the wall. She swings again. I never saw the knife. Then he swung at me, and I hit him finally back to the floor. Boom. Then eventually he gets up, pulls out a third knife. I literally planted my foot right into his chest, out the front door. Continued to stomp the guy until the police came. I got arrested or something. But he was hooked up to a kidney machine for a while. He was brutally beaten. I mean, probably he came close to dying. I beat it. But how did a guy take that kind of beating? Talking about self-defense. Later was determined he was on PCP and some other drugs.
Really?
Yeah. So
who goes out with like 3? That's wild.
That guy. Well, I mean, that's like going out looking for a fight.
One of my knife fighting mentors goes out with 5 knives every night.
Really?
Very well concealed today. Yeah. And he's good with a knife.
Somebody on the stream watching wants to know how you met Dale Comstock.
That's pretty cool. I had a little karate club right after I retired in Spring Lake, North Carolina. And Dale comes in, because Dale's a consummate, shooter and looter. He always trying to improve himself, physically. And
I should point out for people who have no idea what we're talking about, Dale was a 82nd Airborne.
Yeah.
I think he was like maybe the youngest guy to make it through Delta selection. He was like 21 or something.
Well, he was 24, I think. So
I mean,
he was young
guy. Was an operator, and then he was a team sergeant, I believe, in 3rd Group.
Yeah.
And also a lifelong martial artist.
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, that's Dale. And so you can look him up online, Dale Comstock. He's easy to find. He's all jacked up. He looks like him on steroids. So this guy comes in. He wants to train his kids, and he'd been to, according to Dale, he'd been to a bunch of other schools. And he just didn't think there were much reality. Plus, in the CAG or in Delta, they were training with Hoist Gracie and Horian and bringing in all these outside trainers. And that's, at the time, about as real as it gets. Those guys, if you're going to learn, right? But he comes in and he saw the way I was training the kids, and I knocked some guy out the first night, and he's like, "No, this is pretty real,"
Dale told me when he came and visited your dojo, he said you had all these little kids lined up for their karate class, and they had like fucking bats. With like wiffle ball bats with padding you put around them, and you had them wearing helmets and stuff, and had these kids just like wailing on each other, beating the crap out of each other, and he was like, "Okay, this is the real deal."
You have to teach people how to dodge a punch, The concept is to hit without getting hit.
Duck, dip, dodge.
Yeah,
you dodge a wrench, you dodge a ball.
Yeah.
So then Dale joins up his kids, and he said, "I might as well work out too." And our first sparring session, if you read his book. This is an American Badass there. I guess the first and only guy that's ever knocked Dale out was me. It wasn't a cold knockout, but it was not, you know. And he developed, I think in his book, he said the only guy that's ever given him nightmares is me. and on the podcast that we did before, you know. But Dale's as tough as they come, you know, and not the kind of guy you want to run into in a dark alley.
I don't know, and I was telling Jack the other day, like, I don't know if I've ever met anybody more driven than Dale. I remember that while he has a doctorate in like herbology, like is it
Something, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And I just remember like every down moment he had, he was studying. You know, I mean, I was eating Snickers bars.
Yeah,
and
is not a normal
coffee.
like a normal person like near you watching
when
like
he gets
YouTube
something
videos
in,
or something.
When he gets something in his head, like he's gonna do it, and there's nothing that'll stop him. So I think that YouTube meeting was probably very like fortuitous.
Yeah. So Dale's actually been promoted in my system too along the way, and he's a 6th degree in American Extension Fighting. He knows what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
So, you know, my top 2 guys are a guy named Roger Dabney out of Richmond, Virginia, who's also fought for world titles. He's only done karate his whole life, nothing else. He's in the Martial Arts Hall of Fame. You know, he's actually he's a senior board member today. You know, and you met Roger,
yeah,
super guy,
big guy.
He's not one you want to wrestle with if you don't have to. You know, he's a super guy. But
so I kind of derailed this. So you went and you trained boxing. Were you still going back to the American Karate School while you were doing the boxing? Or
yeah.
Okay.
That was part of the upbringing. In other words, if you want to be able to hold your own with these guys, you have to learn basic boxing fundamentals.
Right.
Because when you're in the clinch, before you get into the clinch, when you just, those hands, you know, they're a lot faster, a lot less energy than the legs.
Okay.
You know, and if you know how to position yourself and get off and actually set up and get a 3-point combination on one solid right hand or left if you're lefty, the fight's over. You know, it's just flat out over.
And then where did you go from there? Because you mentioned like one of your knife fighting teachers. Like, so where did your path go then? Like, did you start seeking out instructors in a bunch of different stuff, or did you just happen to meet people, or?
That's a weird thing. Yeah, I've always. Okay, there's a couple of things. One, when I realized I couldn't make any money, I came back into the Army and ultimately got into Special Forces. And of course, North Carolina is a hub for the Ninja Turtles. You know,
yeah.
I know who they are. I know them personally outside the uniforms. A lot of world champion kickboxers come out of North Carolina, to include Joe Louis. And back in those days, he was the guy, you know. So, and he was also influencing, you know, through the seminars and the videotapes, all these people that I trained with. And Danny Wilson, my trainer, and him, and Jerry Pennington, they were the 3 guys, and a few others out there. But they kind of disagreed to agree on something. But anyway, so they kind of fell out.
Creative differences.
And they're still creatively different today. But they all have the same base document, which I think there are 23 technical fight principles written by Joe Louis, clearly influenced by the Bill Wallace's, Bruce Lee's, and Robert Trier's of the world, and probably Chuck Norris and a few of the others. They had their clique back in the day.
Yeah.
And but Joe Louis was just probably pound for pound the baddest of the group. However, Jerry Pennington fought him 2 or 3 times and beat him a couple of times. So, and he's still alive today. You know, he's actually signed off on my new martial arts system, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And you have to prove yourself out to all these guys, right?
Another viewer is asking if you'd be willing to talk about your near-death experience.
Sure. I usually don't, but since the book is out there, I'll tell you before that. I was going to first, Jack and I were working on my autobiography,
Which is still out there somewhere.
Still floating in the
around.
autobiography, unpublished world. And then I said, I'm not ready for that yet. You know, so fighting is just so easy because it's what I've done. You know, and all that other stuff. You know, part of me is like, who wants to hear it anyway? You know, because obviously, you know, when I originally retired, I kind of forget all this crap. You know, but Jack, you brought me back into it. It's all your fault. But I was driving down the road, and I got a friend of mine named Paul Williams, who I've known since the mid-'70s. He was in my brother's company. and every Sunday we kind of communicate, right? And great guy. He's a Louisiana Cajun guy that still keeps the accent. He still lives in Louisiana today. And so on Sundays, one Sunday when it was still really cold, that Arctic blast came down recently, before like before summer, and it was gray and muggy, and I'm thinking about the books, and I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking if I write this fight book, and I'm gonna be your teacher in this age, you're gonna learn from Jim West, and I got 10 or 15 fight stories that are real. I'm drunk in a bar, drinking in a bar. Who wants to learn from a friggin' drunk? You know? I had to establish myself beyond that to where I am today, because I've been through some life-changing events. The most life-changing event is my oldest son being murdered, 16 years ago. But even before that, I just never thought about it. It just ran wide open, And so
I should mention, I've never seen you drink more than like one Coors Light in my life since I've known you.
When I drink, bad things happen.
Yeah.
And so back to the near-death experience. And this book, if you haven't read it, you can find it on Amazon. It's called Messages from Beyond by James Smokey West.
And I'll post links to all this stuff in the description of the video after we finish.
I appreciate that, Jack, because this book is very important. I was driving down the road on that Sunday, going to Pennsylvania, and it's cold and windy, and I looked up in the sky, and there's probably 1 million crows, because it was like the next 8 miles of crows just being wind whipped all the way around. And I had a vision and a dream after my son was murdered that he morphed into a hawk and flew away. And a dream analyst told me that you can set people free in their dreams. In other words, if they died a sudden violent death, they were unprepared, they may be trapped. And so I believe wholeheartedly in my symbolism of this hawk. And I'm driving down the road, and all this happened at the exact same time, talking to Paul Williams on the phone. and I look at these crows, and I said, "What's going on, Paul? You sleeping in or what?" It was Sunday. He goes, and he's got this Cajun accent. "No, motherfucker, I'm getting ready to go to church." I said, "What do you mean you're going to church? I've known you since the mid-70s. I didn't know you go to church." "Yeah, brother, I do my TV church every Sunday." He said, I got to tell you, man, the signs are here, and I'm looking, right? I'm looking, and he said, the signs are here, he says, God's coming. And I looked up, and right at that very moment, there's one tree, there's a hawk, and all that crows being whipped, there's one hawk just sitting there stoically looking down. I'm like, and Paul's telling me this, and then he goes, "But Jim, the devil's coming too." And he said, "I ain't always lived a perfect life." And I'm like, wow. So I had this epiphany. I gotta write this book, And I wanted to talk about not just what happened with my son, but I've been having dreams and visions. And the book itself, if you really look at it, it ties what's currently going on in my life, the visions and dreams I've had way back when. And when I died, I was 4 blocks from home. I was working at Camp McCall as a Phase 3 instructor at the time, 4 blocks from home in Richmond, Virginia. Fell asleep, 45 miles an hour, no seatbelt. Bang, straight into a 150-year-old oak tree. And they said, "You can't kill a tree." I killed a tree, and I'm still here.
It killed you too, though.
It killed me. I had no memory of that, not to this day. I didn't know until I was going to the VA and I was rifling through my records that I actually had amnesia for 2 solid days. I was gone. I have zero memory except when they were cutting me out of the car and bringing me back to life. And I didn't know I was dead. I don't think you do. So even today, before, during, and after, I've never had a fear of actually dying because it's a very pleasant feeling on the surface. But then there's kind of a waiting room, that I ended up in. It was pitch black, dark. Like I said, I felt like I was laying in this warm, black room, laying on my eyes closed in this nice tropical breeze. I'm like, this is really great. I didn't know I was being chopped out of a car and I was dead. I'm like, this is really great. So the act of dying isn't too bad. But I can promise you, based on my real life experiences, that there's something after that. There's kind of like a holding pattern.
Did you feel at that moment when you were floating? Did you feel like there was something else? Did you feel like you were in a waiting room at that time? Was there any kind of anticipation or expectation?
No, best feeling I ever had in my life. And then suddenly, to answer the rest of this, like Paul Harvey, the rest of the story, as I was sitting there, I started having a consciousness about, it's kind of like the sleep terrors when you can't wake up in your sleep.
I've had that many times.
Yeah, it's a lot like that, right? And so I suddenly realized I'm really feeling good. I don't want to wake up, but I don't know where I am. And I couldn't wiggle my fingers. In fact, they weren't even there. It was like my spiritual self, And all of a sudden, as soon as I developed this consciousness, it's like that blackness started taking weight and form. And if you ever watch the movie Ghost, where there's all these dark goblins that come and sweep the guy away, it's almost like that, but darker, much darker. And it's like everything was compressing me. I could hear these unintelligible voices. I didn't, like garble, really dark and deep. And I'm like, then I started panicking, in my sleep or wherever I was. And it was like a tail, like a gray tail, just flew up from where my feet would normally be, and with a red tip, and hits me in my left eye, and I boom just jumped up, and I was screaming, where in the hell am I at, and what the fuck's going on? And I'm sitting on an operating table in an ER, and there are two nurses off to my side cleaning up, and there was a glass, and the doctor standing outside. They had already pulled the plug on me. I was done. Right?
Like they thought you were a cadaver.
I was a cadaver for a moment. And so anyway, I could see the doctor look up, and he's running to me, and he's giving hand and arm signals to the nurses, and he runs up and he gets right beside me, and he looks at me, and he says, "We're glad to have you back, Mr. West."
Oh, I was really hoping he was going to say, "My bad."
Yeah.
I was waiting for it. My bad.
And I'm like, "Well, where have I been?" And he says, "I'm going to ask you not to talk because we have to do a little work on you." And they're laying me down and shoving vacuum hoses down my throat, and I could see a mirror. And they had to do reconstructive surgery. I had to reconstruct my left cheek, my nose, my sinus cavities had to be scraped out. I remember every single moment of surgery. They even had to cut off 3 centimeters of my tongue and stitch it up. So, and then it was 2 days later, I thought it was 5 minutes later, my dad, he's kind of weird, he was an old World War II guy, he's dead now. He was a hardcore iron worker, sheet metal guy. He was in the Battle of the Bulge.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's in my room sitting there, and the clothes I was wearing, he pulled them out of their car, covered in blood, to show me the clothes. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Well, I'm still trying to sort all this stuff out, but my memories of the hereafter are as real and vivid as this moment here. Mm-hmm. And if you read the book, I got to tell you, my takeaway from that moment was, wow, you better live your life a little differently. But I didn't. I didn't change at all after that. And that was in the 80s, right? And then, until my son was murdered in 2003, I was pretty much running on full tilt. But I can tell you this, 17 years after that car crash, that was in the 70s, I'm sorry, right? Well, 79, 81, yeah, 79, April 79. I can tell you that 17 years later, I've been out rucksacking and working and burning up all night. I get home, my couch, done. And I went into one of those spots, right? And I woke up within my dream. I'm sure a lot of you guys have done this. Like you think you're awake, but you're dreaming.
Yeah.
And but where I woke up was the exact same place during that dream.
Oh, really?
The night I got killed. Yeah, I was there. 17 years later.
Did it start with the comfort?
Yep, start everything. And the only difference is I knew where I was, and I reverted back to all the way when I used to meditate in my kung fu days and control my breathing and I started controlling my breathing, and breathing deep, and all of a sudden it's like all that darkness started to move and separate, and I could tell it was just like lost souls, just like mine. I know that's exactly what it was. And as they started to separate in my dream, I could actually see that bright light through there, and I just woke up. I'm like, wow, there's more.
This
is so true.
Well, getting into this whole subject, because there are more questions for you, Jim, but I also want to bring up this play that Dave and I went and saw
Right.
called Last Out.
Last man out.
Oh,
Right.
Last Out. Eulogy of a Green Beret.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Okay.
there's this retired SF officer, Scott Mann, put it out, and I got invited to it, and we went to it, not really knowing what to expect. But I mean, this isn't really spoilers, since I think it's like in the play the what's the thing they
Review.
hand out?
What, the program.
The program. Sorry, work brain work. In the program, it's sort of like a Ghost of Christmas Past type story, in that the first scene of the play is the protagonist dying, and then the rest of it, as the play plays out, it's basically him reviewing and reliving various aspects of his life, especially his military career, as his dead teammate, the guy who had died in 9/11, is trying to get him to go to the afterlife. Like, hey, bro, you gotta let some of this stuff go and come with us now. And I'd love for you to see it, Jim. Hear what your thoughts are. I was actually really impressed by the content of the play.
It's we were both kind of dreading it, I think, or I don't know, dreading it, but I'll speak for myself. Is that there's all just in sort of the veteran community these days. There's a lot of value to having post-traumatic stress. You know, there's a lot of
people like want to brag about it and celebrate their trauma.
Celebrate their trauma, and so
I've never experienced that.
you've never experienced you what do you mean, for yourself, or you've never seen anybody who takes advantage of the indulgence?
Both.
So in the theatrical community, I would say that a lot of veteran plays, or veteran short films or whatever, really focus on that, and it's really sort of an indulgence. And I'm not at all criticizing how anybody deals with anything, but I also think that there's a bit of inauthenticity in for some people. Some people take it on because they know it's going to pay benefits, and so I was. Obviously, I want to support veterans and I want to go to their plays and things like that. But I was kind of dreading the whole, I hope this isn't like just a, woe is me fest, or war is hell fest, or whatever. And it wasn't that at all.
Yeah.
It was not in any way self-indulgent. I mean, it wasn't, the dialogue was phenomenal. The scenes in it.
All of the various like vignettes in the play, like you would relate to immediately, Jim. Like you'd see it, because there are things that we all experience.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. It was very well done.
So that's part of the book. You gotta kind of read through the lines, but like when I looked at the birds and the crow and these signs and dreams, and I even recommend at one point that if you have this weird ass dream that makes no sense, just write it down.
So let me ask you, did that experience, did that inform your spiritual, your current, whatever, I don't know what spirit, what kind of a spiritual system you follow or whatever, but did that inform you at all? Did that influence you? Has your perspective on the afterlife or spirituality changed at all because of that?
I think William Shakespeare said it best: "To thine own self be true." Yes and no. In other words, the life that you live here today may not be the same as the life you live in Uganda or Honduras or mainland China if you don't have any money. Norms, societal norms, that we grow up with, and that they're getting so politically correct now. If you get arrested for spitting on the sidewalk, I think we it's like being euphoric and putting them blinders on. We're so worried about that paycheck next week. Can I pay the bills? Can I pay the rent? What's next for me? 60% of all these modern day marriages ended up in divorce. Everybody, it's just a Sodom and Gomorrah out here. It really is. And I don't think, if you don't have a specific religion to cling on to and truly in your heart believe, what I do, when I say, to thine own self be true, you can't live to someone else's expectation ever. And you have to know in your mind, in your heart of hearts, what's right and what's wrong. And if you live to those norms, my inner belief, based off of all of my experiences, to include my son passing, is that there are two roads, you know? And you have a choice today to figure out which one you're gonna be on when the lights go out, you know? And some of that may be predestined. Like my son, you hear only the good die young. Even he was so artistic, I thought he was way ahead of his time. And maybe his time just wasn't here now, you know? Maybe it just wasn't here. So I have hopes that there's reincarnation. I mean, we'll never know until we know, you know? But, you know, it's like within 10 minutes of my son getting murdered, I was getting a call from the Pittsburgh coroner's officer wanting to harvest body parts. And yeah, obviously that didn't fly really well. I said, listen, he was 18 years old, and that would have to be his choice, not mine. And so just in case, because we may never know that he needs that in his next life, no, just let him take out of this world what he brought into it. I'm all about helping other people, but you know what? When your number's up, it doesn't matter if you got somebody else's heart or lungs. Your number's just up. You know, it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. The only thing, can we control destiny? You know, what the hell is destiny? Where I'm going to be 3 weeks from now, or where I'm going to be when the lights go out, as you say, right? So I honestly don't know. I mean, for years after my first encounter with death I just didn't want to die. I still don't want to die. And I still don't really know, but I do know when I saw that light that you have to believe. And so my spirituality doesn't belong around a specific religion as much as it does a specific belief. You know, that I do believe there's more. And that if you're true to yourself, you know, like honor your God, whether it's, you know, it doesn't matter, pick the religion, and you stay true to your own values, you know, your values, right? Then just let it rock and roll, you know? And I think that if you can stay relaxed in the fire, man, there's a way out, you know, and it's a good way out, you know? So it doesn't matter if you fight every night or if you go to church every Sunday. It's how you handle your day-to-day business, you know? How easy it is for us to get frustrated and, you know, change your language, the way you talk. Well, you know, I'm disappointed, I'm not frustrated, I'm not mad, you know? You know, no character building process, what you think, you say, you know, what you say, you do, what you do, you become. So, you know, it's all about believing in yourself, man. That's me. I mean, I'm not going to agree with everything anybody does. I'm not going to like a lot of people's lifestyle. And I guarantee you they don't like mine. Truly, I don't give a fuck, you know. I know there's a hereafter, and I'm just going to get up every day and do my best and then call it quits.
Jim, somebody was asking about Russian Sistema, the martial arts system. What do you think of all that?
I think everything that's I can tell you, I don't know about Russian Sistema, but I can tell you that Russians are very reality based. You know, like Bruce Lee used to say, when a punch becomes a punch, it is what it is. You know, rear naked choke is rear naked choke. Takedown. You know, boxing's boxing. I mean, it is what it is. If you go back and look at the Russian boxers, where they ruled supreme for a long time, and now they're Irish and the Europeans, and back in the late 60s, early 70s, you know, after the Italians and Irish, you know, and Muhammad Ali did his thing, then it was all the Afro-American boxers and then the Spanish guys in a little category. You know, this question about rhythm, and, you know, technique's nothing but technique, right? To me, and Russian system. It doesn't matter what you learn, it's how you learn it, you know? And where all those boxers go is they can't compete, and mixed martial arts, no. They chase the money. They're 6'8", 290 pounds. They play basketball, they play football. You know, the boxing, they started losing all the money. I mean, even mixed martial arts isn't paying the money.
I think, you know, I have no experience with the Sistema, but they get criticized because the instructors have everyone fighting like in slow motion. And what it becomes is like, you know, those videos out there of like the Kung Fu master and like he waves his hands and his students just fall down.
Did Sistema, how is it supposed to have one of those energetic components to it? I thought that it was...
When you listen to the instructors, there is a sort of mystical... Russian mysticism.
So if I can pipe in, Russia's really really close to China, and you know all this stuff started, thousands of years ago. You know, just learning how to breathe. And the thing about it is the old trapping or sticky hands training. It's
Okay,
almost slow motion, right?
Like some of them, yeah, they have, like, there's hypnotism involved in Systema, yeah.
So I'm not hyped on the hypnotism part of it, but I am hyped. It's okay to work slow and learn that basic body rhythms that people have, because if your breath control is off at full tilt, you're gonna panic, you're gonna lose your breath, get tired fast. And the merit to that is, I think, is adequate and something that could benefit, any fighter, but I wouldn't exclude amping it up,
Yeah.
Contact.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts on, like Krav Maga?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts. I think the first thing I like about it, it is truly reality based. I mean, look where it comes from, right? They're putting guns in Israeli kids' hands at 5 years old because literally they're a spot this big on the map with half the world trying to crush them. So they got to learn how to fight early and defend themselves, right? And so they take it very seriously. And it is based on what's real, a lot of real studies. And also what I like about it is there's no belt ranking system, so you can just come at your own leisure, work and go. And I know a lot of the people that migrate to Krav Maga have a commonality. They just want to survive in the streets, and they're not looking to be competitive out in the ring and stuff. So I enjoy that about them. I think a lot of, a portion of my American extension fighting works on that reality-based level. Actually, all of mine works on a reality-based level. I just don't know that the individual structures, as it gets watered down along the way, is being trained up to the true intent of the guy. If you went to the homeland and says, "Look, I'll sign anywhere. Let's get down and dirty." I don't think they get down. I think they teach down and dirty a lot, but not enough. Too much pads, too much stuff, to make it feel real nice. Really, it's not.
So, like in my mind, and I'd like to get your opinion on this.
I'm going to make a text while we're talking.
Sure,
Can I do
sure.
that?
In my mind, and I don't know what Systema. Like I've seen some videos. I don't know what it's really all about, so I don't want to act like I do. But Systema and Krav Maga, and then you have American gutter fighting, right? You have the
That's Clint.
yeah.
He trained with me for a while too.
The Fairbairn Applegate. Well, I actually met Clint at Carl Sestari's place, training in that. Based on the old Applegate Fairbairn and psych stuff and.
Yeah, well, W.D. Fairbairn's timetable of death, cut the lead down.
Yeah, and then Applegate's kill or be killed.
Right.
And so I think that with these systems, right, that there's a difference between training somebody for self-defense and training somebody to fight. There's.
Well, I put myself out of business because Jack, you can talk to Dale or anybody else. I just couldn't get through all these little soft programs. Next thing you know, I got a handful of guys that are fighting on pay-per-view, UFC, in the streets, all the local underground stuff, Valley Tudo, and every night in my club was a bloodletting,
Yeah.
And I tell you, in the business sense, it ain't all that cool. Since that time, I've learned how to train to that level without letting off blood.
Right.
So we actually take it to another place. I can take a 90-pound girl or some guy that was, Portnoy that grew up, afraid of his own shadow, getting bullied, and within 1 hour have them hit me with full force punches instinctively. And if you're not bringing that up in a person without coaching them, I think there's another level, and that's the level that we're already at.
Right.
And I want to introduce that to the world shortly.
So do you feel as though that there are in some of these systems that they're sort of self-defense oriented, that you're going up against an assailant in a very in a against a grab or against somebody trying to take you down, not take you down like a jiu-jitsu person taking you down, but a mugger taking. Do you feel as though that there's a difference between these short court, because I don't know if Krav Maga, I don't know how many moves there are in Krav Maga, but I know that, Applegate had a very set, he's like, look, you only have these people for this amount of time to train them, like the OSS or, whatever. And so we're going to teach them these things that will hopefully save their life in this situation. Now, you're going, with Fairbairn, I think, wasn't he was a black belt in several martial arts, I think.
Yeah, but if you look at his old black and white, YouTube videos, it's looks like old Army hand-to-hand.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is that they were training with these
I'm not
ideas.
going to ban that century takeout. Yeah.
So when you look at like Krav Maga and maybe Sistema, I don't know, and some of these other things, do you feel that there's a difference in the so Krav Maga isn't really teaching somebody how to fight, it's teaching them self-defense. Do you feel like there's a difference in that or no?
I think that's a great question because we're in the process of finishing up my book, right? And Justin and I, we keep talking, self-defense. I call it self-offense.
Yeah.
Because like for example, you ever watch a couple hockey players, right? When they grab each other, beating the crap out of each other. Well, they've got a lot of pads on, but at the same time when they grab, they roll their shoulder because there's, more or less, it's pretty much 3 knockout points on the body, the via the jaw, the diaphragm, heart, bang, bang, bang. So everything's protected. So they're really not even hurting each other, but it looks good for TV.
Yeah.
Every now and then a helmet flies off and the referee breaks it up, if it gets too stupid. But so when you learn proper self-defense, your offense is built into your defense. So, terminology, what you say, you think, you do, to me, it's the total objective to to American extension fighting is how fast can I turn my defense into an offense?
Uh-huh.
And frankly, I think that can be done in the blink of an eye. Because if you've just got a mugger on your butt and 5 seconds have gone by and 35 punches, turning that thing around is kind of difficult to do, right?
Right.
So how can we take that initial contact and turn it on a guy?
Right.
And that's the stuff we're teaching, right? So, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to definitely ask you about, Jim, is exercise, PT, working out. Because I've worked out with you before, and
Yes.
I couldn't move, I was like a tank turret for a week, all locked up, walking around like that. You're in incredible shape. I know you're recovering from an injury, but
Yeah.
you're in great shape. You're how old are you?
65.
65. And what's your approach in the gym? Because you're not really. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're working out for what, general fitness or to support your martial arts endeavor? What's your thoughts?
I think they go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always told my son and others, I think it's been coined by somebody, I don't know, but it originally came from me, is, because you've seen me, little midriff bulging that, and I go for 3 hours, and it's not a bullshit, there's no rest time, right?
Yeah, and I've been punching you in the kidneys as hard as I can, and then 3 days later you're like, man, why do my kidneys hurt?
Yeah, right?
You didn't even feel it.
Nah. So the point I always say, it's not how strong you are, but how long can you be strong? It's an effectiveness of your overall body, and I'm truly blessed to be 65 and all the injuries and broken bones and stuff. As I got out of the military and started working for myself and then working for corporate America, I realized I ain't got time to go to the gym for 3 hours. Just the time's not there. So I started trying to figure out how can I maximize my workout. And then I interview a lot of people that own martial arts clubs, and you get 2 hours a week, 50-minute sessions. After that, you lose attention span, or people just can't be there. And for 50 minutes, you learn stuff, but is it effective? And not in my opinion. Then you got to go to, got to get up in the morning and run. And how can you combine that to a workout that not only can I learn how to punch, you see all these boxing fitness classes. There's some merit to those things, but there is some merit there. But to me, it's time versus repetition with everything that you do. You see these guys building muscles, and then they're always pulling muscles because they didn't build the infrastructure, the bones. The ligaments and tendons have to be strengthened. If you have strong ligaments and tendons, you screw the muscle. You don't have to be all bailed up. No disrespect to Dale, but or anybody, but my tendon and ligament strength is, and I really found it out. So Jack's mentioned my shoulder injury. So on May 28th of this year, 3 months ago, I had surgery. I had 5 inline fractures. My bicep was torn loose. They had the labor room. They had to put my shoulder back in place and all that other ligament and tendon stuff. So I had 7 holes. They cut through here. Now I have 7 screws in my shoulder. 5 in my shoulder and 2 in my upper humerus, where they had to reconnect the bicep tendon where it wasn't, where God didn't intend for it to be. And that was 3 months ago, right? And I'm already working light taps on the bag and stuff. So, and trying to work the rotation, because it is what it is. But my thing is time versus repetition, right? What I mean by that is, that's going to get you cardio and maybe some fat burning, but definitely resistance training, which when you're tugging and pushing and punching, that's a lot of resistance. So when you do your workout, whether you're punching a bag or doing curls or overhead presses or squats, doesn't matter to me, or running. Let's say I do what I call a 60 rep workout. And you've been there. I'm doing curls. I don't care how much weight I got. If I need to add or reduce the weight, I will. But I grab a weight and I go 60 reps. And I won't stop till I get to 60 reps, right? And then I take a 10-second rep and I do tricep push down, 60. And there's a couple ways that if I were going to program that out, I don't look at the time. I just pick 12 exercises, 60, 60, 60, 60.
Like total body workout?
Yes.
Every time?
Back, shoulders, squats, abs, just boom, 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 boom. Neck, I lay on my back, and do. So, yeah. And when I do that, I get my 60. But let's say I had to compress that time. I'll try my goal with the 60 rep workout is to do 1 rep per second for 1 minute and then switch to the next exercise. So whatever those 12 exercises are, it can be, normally I'll start with back pulls, like upper back, and then I'll turn around and do chest, then I'll do lower back, then I'll do overhead presses, then I'll do tricep push downs, then I'll do curls, then I'll do waist rotation squats, like that, and then I'll do ab crunches. So
how many days a week?
That's easy. That's like a 12 to 18 minute workout every morning.
Every morning.
Yeah. And I'm not worried about muscle building or what it looks like. If I want to get into fat burning, that's not going to necessarily get you there. That's going to be how you eat. And if you want your exercise to get you into fat burning, you need to do that for an hour. So you just got to sweat for an hour, man. You got to cut. This simple layman term. We're not getting into our own big science here, but it works. It's, just burn more than you put in, right? So if you say I'm going to go for a minute, how do I achieve my goal and still feel good about myself? My minute of curls got here, and I only got 38 curls. I only got 25 push-ups, and my minute's up here. Don't worry about it. You got the minute in. Mm-hmm. Just don't stop for the full minute. You can adjust the weight, the reps. You can get on your knees. You can cheat. Doesn't matter how you get there, but that time and that rep theory of mine is how I go all day when I'm in front of somebody. Because when you do that, it's really good for the heart, really good on the heart. And it teaches you how to breathe, because if you're breathing shallow or something, you ain't gonna make it. If you're holding your breath, you just ain't gonna make it. So if you're making those workouts, say through 12 exercises a daily dozen, create your own, you're gonna have phenomenal stamina down the road. Your heart's gonna be strong, and you're gonna have a different kind of strength.
And so after you train strength endurance, then you go to the bag, right? Is that your usual go-to?
If I have time, yeah, I love my bag work. Sometimes I will mix it up and do bag first. I just work standard boxing workout. I do 3 minutes on and 30 seconds off, and that's whether I'm kicking or punching. And I'll do open hand gloves. I'll work elbows, head butts, knees, front kicks. I got a 3-legged bag and a kick on the legs. I just mix it up all the time.
How many rounds?
My goal right now is 12 rounds. When I used to train with Brad Dog and Anthony Bradley back in Callahan Boxing Gym 100 years ago in Fort Bragg, when we trained all the pro fighters and stuff, we did 40-round workouts. So it wasn't all on the heavy bag.
And how many?
You got 10 rounds on the mitt every day. You got mitt work for maybe 10 rounds. You got jump rope for 10 rounds. 5 minutes of jump rope is equivalent to running a mile.
Yeah.
So my feet and knees aren't what they used to be. So I do it on those little round trampolines.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Smart.
So there's always ways to overcome. You know, you just got to figure that out. You know.
Greg Walker's asking some questions here. He's got questions for you, Jim.
I'm younger than you, Greg.
Jim, could you describe the martial arts scene training in special forces in the 70s when you were teaching on Bragg, for example?
Well, yeah, it's yeah. We were all crazy back then. Greg, you probably remember the likes of the very handsome Wild Bill Crane and those guys, you know, Michael E. Chanis, and when you got hit with a side kick, it was real, you know, and there were no pads, you know, so when you were blocking, you might as well got one of those little mock warriors, you know, or those Wing Chun dummies, because, and Greg, you can pipe back in, but I think you're always a little bit sore, always had some bruising going on, and it seems like you're always kind of trying to look for the special elixir to toughen you up. Like for my shins, everybody, no one wants to get hit by my shins. I used to put this magic Chinese herbs up and down and take an old rolling pin, like to roll the dough out, deaden the nerves, and then walk around with a stick all day. My idea was,
This is like a fucking blood sport.
yeah, you just answered Greg's questions like blood sport. Yeah, it was very realistic, you know, because you're. I think part of that too was you never knew if you were going to deploy, and so I think we're always, and we knew we had, you know, everybody thinks, hey, we're great combat veterans and great tacticians, but we're, you know, special forces in the old days weren't direct active. We were teachers, you know, we were force multipliers, and we had to pull in those commandos and those indigenous guys, and we had to make a believer out of them, you know, because they were coming from the dredges of life, you know, that didn't have any upbringing, and we had to shape them up overnight, you know. So I think most of us, you know, we went out with the idea that, I was pretty confident in what I do now. I know when I block you, you're gonna feel it, you know. So it was a lot more touchy feely.
Yeah. So you mentioned Michael Johnson. So did you guys do a lot of like Kali and a scream?
I didn't really work with him that much. Greg did, and some others did, but I did work with some Billy Crane, who spent some time with him, and some other guys. And of course, I did a lot. I had my own thing going on at the time. You know, I've always done my own thing. You know.
So what kind of knife fighting have you studied, and what do you like? What do you? And I'm sorry, I know there are other questions. And like, what types of knife fighting? I mean, kind of just prison shanking, or like?
Well, yeah, a lot of improvised prison shanking, this, that. Yeah. But when I got out of the military, I shaped up my knife fighting through a guy named Scott. He was one of the Chris Syok guys. Have you heard of Syok?
Yeah, Syok Kali. Yeah.
Those guys that came from the.
Those guys for the hunted. They were that was Syok Kali. Yeah.
Yeah, they practice their knife fighting skills. You know, there's none better.
Yeah.
And so I used to do a lot of stuff. I just teach myself a lot of natural body movements.
Yeah.
If you think of a knife itself is an extension of your body. You got a knife on you? No. I'm actually first time ever.
I have a box cutter.
That's better than a knife. A razor blade will cut you now and rip you open later. But yeah, a lot of the knives and stuff, you know, I like to use a reverse grip with them. Mm-hmm. So, because I tend to use as much as possible my fist, you know, skin to skin. So, you know, if it doesn't go skin to skin, it goes weapon to skin, you know, steel to skin. So, you know, I've always believed that, you know, the knife throwing, I know how to knife throwing, all this stuff is knife. But listen, the fight's going to happen here. Yeah. It's not going to happen over there. All this true eye, and I'm gonna, you know, and if you look at some of my stuff, I teach all that. But
Ninja stars.
So do you prefer like a karambit? Would that be your?
I love a karambit.
A karambit is very good. You've seen me work with them. Have you seen me work with them?
I haven't. But
really good. I can show you a video.
I've seen you messing around with the Eskrima sticks too.
And yeah, I'm really good with the screen. I just think everything's part of body. Like in the American extension fighting, you know, boxing's our base. But then we get into this frame. You hear framing and you see these guys trying to do some bastardization of it where it looks kind of weird but halfway effective. I'm the guy that created this mess, right? The way it is. And so when you frame, like your box, somebody comes in, you always got your body movement, you're slipping, bobbing, footwork's number one. Boom. When you frame, you're locking your jaw in and you never cross your hands. And I can do the same thing with a knife. When I'm in here, as long as I'm here, and I've got this knife in either hand, I can get you off of me really fast and slice and dice. But the important thing is to lock the jaw in so that you don't get the coup counter and get knocked
Well,
out.
that plays into, Greg had a follow-on question. He's asking about, did the Badger, did that ever come out? That's your self-defense tool that you developed.
So we discussed the Badger, Jack and I did earlier today, and the answer to this, no, Greg. However, it's not far away. You probably remember Robin McCauley and some of those guys, Greg. He's been exposed to it. I'm getting some mock-ups made because it's got so much versatility. It can be used for a lot of stuff that we're going to put together a training video and try to get out on range 37. So before I release it, we're going to try to get out there and get a government contract. I've got a commercial and a government copy, so it's not long away.
What is the Badger? Can you describe it? You want to describe it to people?
Yeah.
You're gonna get Jim to divulge trade secrets.
You don't have to if you don't want to. If you want to wait.
So actually, part of it, I can show you a picture of it. Because part of the delay, Greg, is that I have a patent that just got fully patented. So if anybody tries to knock it off,
But it's also designed to work with the form of hand-to-hand combat that you're describing, right?
yeah,
That
it really is.
You're holding it in your hand while you're framing.
I'll show you a picture here. You just give me a moment. I'm digging through rifling through my stuff. I'll see stuff.
Yeah, give us a chance. We're over 30 and working on it.
Yeah, we have somebody else commenting about the book I recommended, 3 Sips of Gin by Tim Bax, and he's recommending one about the Gurkhas, Gurkha Better to Die Than to Be a Coward by Color Sergeant Kailash Limbu. I'll take a look for that.
Yeah.
He's also asking, Jim, what do you think of the kukri?
Well, I actually back in my kung fu days, I had the guy that used to train me. He's kind of a wild ass guy, and we used to train with the kukri because it's got that inside blade. And we used to walk around the body. And remember, I'm still recovering from shoulder injuries right now, so. But I think they're awesome because you can use them not only at a distance, but you can use them really up close. So I think they're pretty awesome.
I have one.
I've got one in the house.
I have one I bought in Nepal. It's actually the kind that they carried in World War II.
Really?
That one on my bookshelf.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's like that big. The ones they carry today are a little smaller. They're like 9 inches.
That's 6 inches long.
Oh, very nice.
And that's a mock-up. It's not a finished.
Nobody wants your 6-inch when they have my foot long, Jim.
They can have yours.
I'd love to see how
Yeah.
it looks.
So I created an angle. So when you hold it here, so it's got a spike on one end, curves around the hand. I can flip it back, still bare knuckle. There's no external blade. There's a blade on the inside that cuts coming out. So it's geared for defense only.
Yeah.
But you can break through a brick wall with it. You can
Yeah.
climb with it. Somebody wrecks a car, you need to break a window.
Yeah.
Fire departments, EMS, police.
Yeah, it looks like
combat veterans. You walk around a corner, you lose your gun, it pulls right off. Ladies can carry it on the handle of their purse. Lose the purse, you're still in shape. And it's for here.
It looks like a combination of a rescue tool and a karambit in a way.
In a way.
Yeah, or like a bit of an ice pick on steroids.
Yeah, so the cool thing about it is this angle, I can turn it 360 degrees in this one, if the bent rounded edge is here, without ever touching myself. And if I put it on this end, and it comes back, it's geared where you can't cut yourself. So now, most people will cut themselves dicking around with knives.
Oh yeah.
And it's very, very difficult to cut yourself with this one. And
I bet I could do it. I bet I could cut myself.
you could.
Yeah, I know I could. Somebody's asking, are you cornering a fighter? Heard your name on a UFC Fight Pass fight on as a female fighter's quarterman. Wasn't sure if that was the real Jim West.
I heard there was another Jim West too, but no, I'm not right now. So I have to I have to investigate this. I found somebody stealing my stuff, but I have in the past.
And the same guy saying he didn't get any notification when we went live, which is a good interlude for my PBS PSA. My public service announcement is please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, and hit the little bell icon, and that's so that you get notifications when we go live. So please make sure you hit that.
I also know, as a fact, I've heard other YouTubers say it, that that their subscribers who are getting notified are also not getting notified for all of their streams. So basically, I don't know if you guys know this, but YouTube has basically decided to stop supporting creators and start supporting mass media.
It's going to be like Facebook, where you're going to have to like buy ads.
Yeah. So basically, they're downranking all independent creator content. They're ranking Fox and MSNBC and CNN. And
really?
so now, yeah. So
That's just
now,
gross.
so now, so now that's what everybody's competing.
That's what Amazon is starting to do the same thing, where it's like the big publishers are buying ad space, and those are the books that get promoted.
Yeah,
like Amazon cut its teeth as like it was a place where independent authors could go.
Create space. Yeah.
Like myself, I'm an independent author with my independently published books on Amazon, and it seems like now they're going the way of Barnes and Noble and Borders, who they're all but out of business. Borders, I think, is out of business. Barnes and Noble is scaled way back. Yeah. It's like, Amazon, why are you going down this road, man? This is what was the doom of your competition.
They're bending knee.
It's
they're all bending knee.
And same thing like YouTube. YouTube is like been like the refuge for like alternative, forms of entertainment. All sorts of different entertainment.
That is true. Well, I mean, the guy who used to do Stolen Valor, YouTube kicked him off because they considered
Shipley.
Shipley, yeah, they kicked him off.
I don't know exactly why they did it, but and maybe I could have Don Shipley come on the stream sometime and talk to him. But I think it was something it had to do with like if you're singling people out.
Targeted harassment is what they call it, I guess.
And he was definitely singling people out, and there were people who were doing bad things.
Yeah.
Right.
Pretending
to be Navy SEALs, pretending to be Green Berets. So I mean, he was exposing people who were liars. So
how often do you how often do you experience that where you run into guys who claim to be soft, and especially in the martial arts world?
Not a lot, but I have.
Yeah.
And it's pretty embarrassing because when a guy comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm a former Navy SEAL, Force Recon Marine," man, I'm like, "Wow, that's cool." I don't go. My first instinct is, "Really? Are you lying to me?" And there was a guy in Richmond, Virginia, 9th grade black belt in our system, and also he's training all the county police and all kinds of people. His name's Keith English. Not to single anyone out.
Great, we're losing our channel.
We're getting shut.
It was fun, guys. Thanks.
Was that bad?
No.
But
just joking.
He marketed. He's really good. He's a great martial artist. A good guy. I like the guy. But found out in the last couple of years that his whole marketing strategy. He's got the tattoo. Force Recon tattoo.
Really?
Tattoo.
Right.
Yeah.
It is a tattoo.
Yeah. And he marketed himself as a former Force Recon Marine. And I've known him for years and never even doubted it.
It's always sad, man. I mean, I remember I met one guy who was legit special forces. He was a Green Beret, but then that wasn't enough for him, and he had to claim that he was in Delta. And I was like, okay, who do you know in the unit? And the only names he could give me were guys who were KIA. So that sent some red flags right away. Like all the guys you know are dead. So we can't ask.
And it's one thing for a civilian to think they can get away with it, but for a vet, those the community.
Well, a vet from within inside the organization.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. A soft vet, you're going to get called out.
And I can make one phone call and find out.
It's funny. I got an email 5 or 6 years ago. Said, "Hey, Jim, they're busting you out on this credentials check website." I said, "What are you talking about?" Didn't even know this stuff existed. So I went over there, and one of my earlier DVD tapes, which I didn't write the ad on, Whiskey 9 Halo Scuba guy.
Yeah.
I think it said something like certified Whiskey 9, and that's not a certification and all this stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Whiskey 9 is an identifier, of course. I mean, it's.
But somebody tried to say, this guy's all these dirty names.
If somebody doesn't like you, they're going to go over your DD-214 with one of those like Stainer little magnifying glasses and try to find something.
I'll put mine online.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Whiskey 9. I got married years ago, and then divorced, not too long after that. But,
So whiskey night guy?
no, almost. I was in a bar. We were getting married in San Antonio, and at my wedding, were guys from every unit, every branch, every unit, every soft unit, and we were all in a bar hanging out. The whole wedding party and everybody, all the guests. It was like the night before, and this is in San Antonio, so there's a military base there, and I was talking to I see one of the girls from our party talking to these guys, and I went over and go, everything okay? She goes, yeah, these guys they're really cool, they're military, and they start telling me the stories. One guy was Australian SAS, another guy was something else, and he goes, oh, but you don't want to mess with him. I'm like, all right, what's his deal? He goes, he's a Whiskey 9. I go, what's that? He's Halo and Scuba Golf. I go, and they he's here, but he gets called out on secret missions. I go, I'll be right back. So I go over and I start talking to all my buddies. I'm like, hey, listen to this. And these guys are talking to this girl, hey, what's he doing? He's oh, all those guys, they're all Rangers and SEALs and Green Beret and stuff. And so he's probably just telling them,
So you guys met your doppelganger party.
Oh yeah.
Of stolen
and these guys just started it was quite the humorous situation.
Yeah. So on my website, the American Extension Fighting.com website, and Jack, you've seen my stack of stuff. I put a couple of certificates out there, they're real. When I graduated with a Q course, when I went to sniper school, when I graduated Halo, combat diver, scuba, when I graduated Operation Intelligence. I just put a few of those things. A little picture of me there too, in a suit. And it's me having been, it's in the back gate of the White House. So, I put some of that stuff out there for the naysayers,
Sure.
Oh.
And look, I think it's fair for people to question. I mean, it's fair. It's very fair because there are so many people out there trying to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
But,
It's really sad, especially in the martial arts community, because, there's such a need for, especially today's battlefield, for all these soldiers to know how to defend themselves when they lose their weapon in close quarters. I think it's essential. Not that it hadn't always been, but, when you go from unconventional warfare to urban warfare,
right,
direct action,
and everything's happened. I mean, or you get that click, whatever, when you need it most.
And even this guy that I was talking about, Keith. I mean, the guy, if you learn from him, you learn good stuff because he's really good. But how can you take pride in the guy being a poser? And that's it's kind of sad.
It's like that underlying insecurity that you have to go that further mile.
Yeah, you have to reinvent yourself. Take what works for you. If you're one of those folks, and then just make it better.
You see it a lot in weapons training too. People who are phenomenal with pistol craft, weapon craft, or whatever, and they feel like being good at that isn't enough, so they have to embellish. And it's man, you're really good at what you teach. Don't fuck it up. Don't mess up.
There are also some real deal guys out there because the whole tactical world out there.
Sure.
Right? These guys who are real former soft guys, and I'm not going to mention any names. I'm not going to bust anyone's balls publicly. But I mean, you go and watch their promo videos and stuff. And it's wow, this hurts my balls to watch. It's so bad. But I mean, I'm also not the audience. They're trying to sell themselves to civilians.
Sure.
Operators operating operationally, tack light.
Right.
It's just, what
hurts me now is guys that I knew along the way years ago, and now they're making boatloads of money, pimping themselves out as the military hand-to-hand guy. And the guys, I whooped their ass, knocked them out, and I'm like, what do they really know? I mean, they know some stuff. Well, where are you teaching from?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
This is something I don't think civilians understand often. Is that if whether it's hand to hand or shooting or lock picking or whatever else it is, nobody in the military in any special operations community is great at that. Just by the nature of them being in that spot. I mean, they're good. They're very good. But you'll bring in for pistol, you'll bring in somebody like Jerry Barnhart to teach you shooting.
Yeah.
You'll bring in a locksmith to teach you lock picking. Unless a guy takes for instance you in hand to hand. unless they take a real interest in that and
Yeah.
grow themselves, just by the nature of being in, in a JSOC unit or whatever else, they're going to be generalists. They're
Yeah.
going to be, they're going to be good. They're not going to be the best in the world.
No.
Best in the world are doing that one thing all the
'Cause,
time.
like, no operator can be totally proficient on long-range marksmanship,
No.
pistol marksmanship, off-road driving, urban surveillance.
Right.
Like, you just can't. You have to pick and choose.
Yeah,
I mean, like for myself in martial arts, I mean, no matter what else I did, I was at that gym.
You're always training. That's the thing.
I mean, all
Yeah.
the time. Even when I wasn't at the gym,
When I was one of those weirdos who, on the weekends, I would go and shoot my pistols out of the range.
Yeah.
Right, and
I love that
that's what it takes. Is it takes,
Yeah.
like I'm saying is, I'm not saying that there aren't guys in those units that are phenomenal at it, but they're phenomenal at it not because they're in the unit. They're phenomenal at it because
Practice all the time.
they practice. They go on their off time
Yeah,
and do it.
yeah.
So let me build on that and something you asked me before and today that earlier today that we didn't get to yet about training, and like when I was shooting all the time, I'm really good, and I know that I'm not the guy that I used to be. Remember, my vision's not as good, so I had to figure out how can I still be effective. Remember, there's a difference between good and effective.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, everybody asks what's the difference between a weaver and a isosceles and all, and one's basically standing still, one's kind of moving. So for me, as I've gotten older, I have to be realistic. When am I ever going to use a gun? When am I going to have to shoot somebody?
Right.
I'm not going to walk around the street with a gun going, oh, I gotta shoot
Well,
somebody.
and for the average civilian, like you see them like putting on full kit with an M4. Like, when in the fuck is a civilian gonna blow through a basic load of ammunition through their M4?
Yeah.
When?
So for me, it's really simple. It's somebody breaks in my house, I got a shotgun and a pistol, and I know that from my basic boxing stance, my tripod, that I don't have to aim to catch you with what I do know. So I'm not going to take you out to range and come from the leather faster than you, or just put stuff down range with a sniper shot. Look, if I take a week, I'll do okay.
Yeah.
But things happen a lot faster. So where I'm at, this is what I was going to drive to. I know what I can be good at and be effective at right now. And so I know everything to me, and even in the American Extension Fight, there's an environmental part to the overall program. Low light, high lights, difficult situations. Like right now, I have an injured shoulder. How am I going to make that work? Well, that would work with this isosceles shooting position, no problem. Right now. Can I hit you with a straight right hand and be effective right? No. So I was sitting around figuring, how can I hit hard with the right hand? So I'm taking the rotation and I'm pinning my arm to my side and I'm maneuvering myself using little low kicks and stuff. And I can pin my arm and use my body to hit you with. It's like a battering ram. So I got to bring you closer.
Right.
And I got to set that up. So I figured out how to make that work. It's just like throwing a hook punch. A lot of older guys' shoulders go out. They go, I can't throw a hook punch because my shoulder's shot. So I tell people, your hands, right? It comes from the old Chinese stuff. Is to use, the gooseneck like this. Here's a gooseneck, right? So if it hurts me to do this, roll your hand over, and it takes all that pain out. Hit with the back of the wrist, bang, quick, and block the jaw. And you got the elbow nuts, all that stuff. So you got to learn what works for me and how can I make it work, right? So just because you've got injuries or you've gotten older or you don't train, you have to take that toolbox and pull out the bottom drawer and say, I can use this.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, it all goes back to the basics,
We mentioned Achonis, but Greg is also asking about Chuck Sanders. If you ever sparred with him.
No, I didn't spar with Chuck Sanders. I knew the guys. We were on two different paths back in that day. And did Greg know Guy Savelli as well?
If he's listening, he can chime in.
Yeah. The one that could knock you out through a wall. But I did spar with Joe Louis and a whole bunch of other former world champions and a whole bunch of boxers and Hank Johnson and Marvin Johnson's brother. And I've had a lot. I worked with Keith Hayflick. He was a light heavyweight U.S. title holder at the time. And Roger, we've done hundreds of rounds together. And Dale Fry, one of the Ninja Turtles, they all say lightweight world champion. I've worked with so many amateur and professional world champions, probably 30, 40, 50 years. And we put time in, and all my training, like when I do my knife training with the karambit, for example, the talon, I do it with a naked blade, you know that. So I don't protect, use fake knives and stuff.
Who was either who was the toughest person you ever fought, or what was the toughest fight you've ever been in?
I don't know.
It was with me.
It was
Yeah.
it was Jack.
I've been bulking up, and
Jack actually asked me to ask this question.
Yeah, I actually fought Jim and Pat McNamara, not at the same time. I took like a 5-minute break in between.
Well, it's a good thing you took that break. I think it was too long of a break. So that's a really unique question. As we go through different portions and parts of our life, our own perspective changes based on our experiences, right?
Sure.
So part of that experience is when I was young, and even as I grew older, I found out, looking for my talent, I found that if I put this on mute, I'll let you watch it while it's So, yeah. Hold on, he's gonna watch mine.
I'm gonna indulge.
So I'm probably one of the fastest in the world. But so Billy Crane, Wild Bill Crane, back in the day, he's still alive. I think he lives in Albuquerque. Him and my brother were like this. I met him when I was in high school. First and foremost, he can take a punch. If you go online on the guy Savelli, YouTube's, a big country-looking guy, green beret, doing demonstrations. He's breaking pipes bending pipes on his chest, taking 2x4s across the back of the head. That's Wild Bill Crane. That's a pretty tough guy. The other thing about Bill Crane is he truly doesn't care. When you don't care, it's not, are you afraid? Are you not afraid? Who's gonna win? If you ask Billy, well, what if you go to jail? Well, I'll just go to jail. he legitimately doesn't care. And I've witnessed him, in fact, because of him, I ended up getting in so many street fights because we just developed eventually we merged and hung out together for a while. It was like the old Wild West, it was really bad. And Billy, everybody asks, what do you learn? I've knocked more people out with either a right hook or an overhand right. And people wonder, well, why is that one technique your go-to? One, usually, the distance is already, we've lost control of that. We've lost control of the whole fight. So I tuck my chin, launch it overhand right, and I can be chest to chest with you and knock you out with it. And I have. Well, Billy Crane's daddy used to be a sparring partner for Rocky Marciano. And his mom was a wonderful lady, and he rode bulls in Texas, and he went to University of Mississippi, played football. He's just a guy that grew up not caring. And he told me that his dad taught him how to throw this old Rocky Marciano overhand right. And look, he not a big guy, Rocky Marciano. He did tons of damage. He took tons of damage, and Billy's very capable of taking tons of damage. But he told me how to launch his overhand right. It works for me. I can even do it with a bad shoulder, which is really cool because it's really close. I almost don't have to release it to make it work.
Maybe 10 minutes, and we'll wrap this up. There's a few more questions. If you guys got any questions, get them in now before we wrap up.
Speak now or forever hold your peace. I love that.
Not bad.
Yeah.
He just saw me do a little knife play.
Yeah, got a talent. Yeah, it's a talent credit. It's a nice little play.
Taylor asks, are you still training the young female UFC fighter?
No, she went and got married. She's still training, doing her own thing. I wish her all the best in the world. She did tell me that if she should ever want to get back into fighting, that she would come back to me. So, but young people, she has her own path, and fitness is her number one path, and she's doing very, very well at that these days. And she got married to a guy, and my understanding is he's very spiritual, and I'm glad he's doing well.
Timmy asks, any involvement in bare knuckle boxing in the future?
Not unless I get in a bar. The anticipation is no. I am 65 years old, but when I train on my heavy bags, I do open hand. I do, you know, all the strikes that might have to fall back to in a real fight. And I work with 16-ounce boxing gloves, 'cause I like the extra weight, it makes me work harder. And then I take the gloves off and I work bare knuckle. And the reason I work bare knuckle, because when you hit with a glove or with hand wraps, even a mixed martial arts 4-ounce finger-free glove is 100% different than hitting bare knuckle. When you're hitting bare knuckle, you have to adjust how you punch and your distance and a whole lot of other stuff. So if you anticipate your lifestyle may drive you to bare knuckle contests, get yourself a really heavy bag, and because your punch has got to be dead spot on, not to screw up your knuckles or wrist, and do a lot of bare knuckle
Do
punching.
you recommend that they like add like a makawari or something like that to it, or do you think the bag is enough?
I think if you get a 175-pound, 200-pound heavy bag,
That's
in
enough.
leather,
Yeah.
that ought to work. But the makawaris, over time, you know, like, you know, when I was young, I used to do a lot of that. Do you have to do that? No. A really solid heavy bag will get you there.
How different disciplines teach on fighting, defending against multiple opponents, and what's a realistic approach?
Yeah.
So more than one guy coming at you.
Yeah, I've actually had that happen in the past, believe it or not. I have this unique way of winning people. Especially when I was younger, in my turmoil days, I call it living on the dark side of martial arts. I'll give you an example. I'm walking, this guy called Ice Pick in my book. I'm walking out of the one language school out in Presidio, Monterey, and I'm walking down the parking lot. I had a few beers with me and a couple of my friends, and here come these guys in weight formation. The first guy, he was a 10th group guy. I never knew his name then, don't know it now. But they called him Ice Pick, and he just came right to me like, I want to make a reputation. His hands were in his pocket. He walks up and stops here. You know, like, what's up? They call me Ice Pick. I said, well, that's great. I reached over and grabbed his sweater, pulled it over his head, and hit him in the face. Boom, fucked him all up. The other two guys started to move. My guys got out of the way, and I stepped between two cars because they're parked this far apart, and they had to channel themselves into me. So instead of getting one to the left,
Beat him into the chute.
yeah, I beat him, right into the chute. So I stepped on the guy's foot, hit him, he falls backwards. I don't even think it was a knockout punch, but when he fell, he stumbled into his buddy, they both fell down. I'm like, that's pretty easy stuff, you know? So I always put one guy between me and that and make sure there's none ever behind my back. That's the number one.
And that's like the huge like misconception is like I hear guys talk, I'm sorry, I think they sound like idiots, like I need to have the wall to my back. Whenever I go to the restaurant, I sit with my back to the wall. It's like, first off, dude, go to VA and talk about your PTSD issues. Second, like if you got your back to the wall, where the fuck are you going? You get into trouble.
Yeah. My thing, whether your back's to the wall or not, I don't care where my back is. I want people in front of me. I want to be able to visualize everything around me, you know. And if people do start getting to my back, I've got pretty wide ranging, you know, night vision and peripheral vision. But when I react to motion, but when I can't see motion, then I'll re-angle myself. I'll always want to know what's behind me, and that's.
When I go to like eat at Quiznos, I just sit wherever and let people walk behind me. I get a little buzz out of that, you know, like I'm riding the edge of life.
Well, if you think about it, you got more than one sense, you know, and you can hear things around you. If things get really deadly silent behind you, your hair's going to stand up on your back, and you can watch other people's eyes.
Yeah, I can tell you, like, I've been trying not, like, I've been practicing, but I have an issue with having my back, like, generally I generally have to have my back to the wall, but that doesn't actually comes from my childhood more than anything, you know what I mean? But I get very...
Yeah, it makes people nervous.
I get very nervous, you know. But also, it's really weird going out on a first date and the girl, you know, she sits down. It gets really weird, like asking her. It's like, oh, you know, I've got this thing. Can you please trade me seats?
I just tell them be comfortable, because what I do is I just watch people's eyes, you know, because they're going to give stuff away. They're gonna look, you know.
Well, the problem I find though is most people are oblivious. Like when you're in a bar and there's like tension rising, not from your group or from your people, but someplace else. Everybody else in the group is generally completely oblivious to it. I'm like, hey, let's move this conversation over.
Sadly enough, I just, like I say, we're the middle of the room and the edges. I'm more comfortable with people where I can see everybody.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. And sadly enough, if I sit at the bar, all bars have a mirror.
Yeah.
So, you know,
yeah.
you can,
Corey has a question for Jim and Jack. Any tips for a former infantry guy with SF aspirations, whether it's fitness, mental, whatever?
Yeah, you know, the Ranger courses, Special Forces courses, all the Special Ops groups, they build these courses around endurance. You know, it's how far can I run in rucksack? How many hours a day can I stay awake and still be functional? You know, and I would say whatever you're doing, if you really want to be successpound, when your buddies are going out to drink at night, before you go join them, I'm not saying don't, put a 35-pound ruck on your back and take a 2-hour ruck march.
Yeah.
You know, and then go drink, and then get up in the morning and miss PT.
They're at this point, I mean, more so than when I went through, definitely a lot more than when you went through. Now, I mean, you can find programs on the internet that former operators have written about ruck marching and how to prepare for selection. But yeah, endurance, PT test, all that kind of stuff.
Also use the same type of equipment. You know, like to use a civilian rucksack.
Oh yeah.
Is different than a military. So, you know, go to an Army A&M store, some stuff, you know, and get some, you know, like jungle boots or something on canvas, because you got to condition your feet. And don't do everything on a flat level surface, you know. Go around the edges of mountains and stuff and up and down the hills, because all that pacing, it's a whole lot different from going over a mountain and going around one, you know.
Yeah.
One guy's asking, who can, or what's the secret to beat Khabib? I don't know who that is. Is that a UFC fighter?
It's just my opinion. I think Khabib is, I wouldn't say easily beatable, but the person that beats him can have, you know, a decent wrestling background, but he's got to be brutally strong. And his endurance level has to be the same as or better. And he's got to not be afraid to get in the clinch with the cat. But his footwork, in my opinion, has to be superior. Because a guy that can just sit there and hit him and make him miss and get him chasing you with a good jab and stuff and take him into the deep water before, you know, the 4th or 5th round can beat Khabib. You know, if you're afraid of the takedown, you're never probably going to beat him unless you're just going to out wrestle him. But you got to have superior hand speed. And also, I think, physically, you have to be lined up with a guy. You know, some fighters have really long arms, and they got that sinewy type strength and stuff. I think they got to have a long reach on him, you know, because kicking him in the legs and stuff. This guy was wrestling bears as a kid, you know. So, yeah, you know, like if you go back and historically and look at Muhammad Ali and that Japanese fellow, you know, they did 12 rounds in the ring.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I can't remember.
Anoki, that was his name. His name was Anoki. But anyway, there's YouTube videos of that. But you're not going to beat him playing his game. To me, just like boxing, that jab's got to be, every time he moves, you got to disrupt that movement. And it's got to be effective. You got to make him miss. So you can't let him corner you, and you got to have brutal strength. You know, so if you see somebody that looks like they match up with him, I'd wait 18 months and put them back in the gym, make sure they keep their speed and power, and increase their strength 10 times, you know, because you got to out-muscle this guy.
Another viewer is asking what you guys thought of John Wick 3. I haven't seen it.
I like all the John Wick stuff.
Yeah.
The first one to me was the best.
100%. The first one, I feel like, well, John Wick 3 I thought was more fun than John Wick 2.
Yeah.
I felt like John Wick 2, they go, oh, what worked in John Wick 1? Okay, let's do more of that and longer. And the fight scenes went too long in John Wick 2, I felt like.
I fell asleep watching
his fight with Common, you know, like the two bodyguards, like the first fight when they were in Italy, I felt like they were just putting the fight on display, basically.
Yeah. I'm more like, what's his name, Liam, you know, in Taken.
Oh, you're Liam Neeson, yeah.
Liam Neeson, Taken.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, they both have similarities, but his are more vicious and more realistic.
Yeah.
Less Hollywood.
Yeah. But John Wick 3 was a lot of fun. Like the dogs, the elements with that and stuff like that.
Agreed.
That was a lot of fun. But the fight scenes did, like, I felt like start dragging out.
They gotta bring something new to it.
Yeah.
Are you guys gonna go see the new Rambo movie?
Oh,
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely.
I want to go see it, but I can't take my daughter to see that one.
Yeah.
It might be a little bit much for
Doesn't get any better
for a
than
kid. Timmy asks, can you have power behind a regular punch having a 65 in reach?
Can you have power behind a regular punch with a 65-inch reach? If you're 3 foot tall, yes. No, I'm being facetious. You can have power behind any kind of punch. What I mean by that is, a lot of people say power's at the end of the punch. I'm sure you've heard that. What's his name?
Timmy.
Tim. So the idea is, when you hear that, you think the power's way out here. You know, what if I'm hitting a guy with an uppercut this close to me, right? That I've got to still put power at the end of this punch, or if it's an elbow. So 65 inches, 84 like John Jones, doesn't matter. You got to put yourself in the right position, and you got to, you know, connect at the right time. So the timing has a lot to do with it, but if, you know, you don't want to, and recoil has more to do with that power than just trying to hit hard.
You made the point to me that you have to think of the punch as like a snap. Like it
Yeah.
should snap at the end.
1000%. You know, if you're just hitting a guy real hard and trying to drive through, it may be a point of aim's back here, but when you push through, it just becomes a big push and less of a punch. But so when I train people to punch, I teach them to let their hands are very relaxed going out. They tighten up about the last 2 inches of the punch, so it gives you that, you know, so there's no antagonist being used when your hand's going out. It's going to go faster. And as soon as you tighten it up, bang, it comes back quicker. And of course, when you do that, you're putting that shock wave through it instead of a big push. But remember, it's not about the length of your arm versus where the end of that punch actually lines up.
You pointed out to me too, working the heavy bag, is that you shouldn't be like pushing the
Bingo.
bag.
If it feels strong, it's wrong.
Like you shouldn't be pushing the bag. Like when you punch, the bag doesn't really swing.
No, pop, 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 pop. It's like a little machine gun,
Yeah.
but you can feel the punches. It'll damn near stop your
You
heart.
can feel it, yes.
So it's all about recoil, you know. So if this is the surface and I'm punching this way, I'm probably going to put my point of aim here, and pop, but as soon as my hand tightens up, it's already on its way back. So I'm not pulling the hand back, I'm pulling the elbow back, because these elbows got to stay close. When you're pulling the hands back, you're leaving things open. So it's push-pull mechanics, pop out, you know, real quick, and tighten up right on impact, pow, and you'll love that explosion on the end of your punches.
Now, can they practice that on a heavy bag? Do they need focus miss? Like, what's the best way to work that timing? Okay.
Both. You need to put it in a lot of different, you know, because what your footwork on a heavy bag, you can learn, you know, where you need to be in relationship and work all the angles, and you know, and one thing, you know, like when you get close enough where you're this striking versus this striking, out here I work about 2 to 4 inches outside of my reach, so when I step, everything's lining up, and because if I can touch the heavy bag, but before I start stepping, when I hit, my hand's never going to mature. It becomes a big punch, a big push. And so I want to make sure I work from, well, I tell people to work outside of their comfort zone. And when it gets inside, then I want to change my angle so that I'm kind of squaring off to the guy. So I can get the lateral, you know, shifting weight behind your punches.
One of the things you did with me that I do with my daughter when I train her is have her punch the medicine ball. So holding it in your arms right here and having the fighter circle around, and you're moving.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to add that. You said mitts and heavy bag. The other thing I do is I take a 14, 10, 12, 14 pound, you know, rage ball, a medicine ball, and hold it. I say, punch over here, give me a hook, you know, put your body over here, right hand. And sometimes you're calling a punch off for your partner. You know what they're coming with, so you step into them. And you shorten that punch up deliberately. So they have to constantly readjust under fire to make sure they can maximize their power.
And you tired me the fuck out because, you know, you used to work in the heavy bag, which is basically stationary, and now you're moving all around the room,
Yeah.
not having a leg.
And I gotta say something, Jack, no disrespect, when you said circle, it's not really circle. I have a phobia. If you're training with me, you ever watch these guys training, pop, 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 and they walk in circles around? If you're doing that, get out, you know. You got to cut your fighter off. You got to keep constant forward pressure. Instead of circling, just step off in front of them. Always, it's like a mirror. It's like a dance. Don't allow people to circle. Don't train circling, because if I'm standing, you go that way. I'm just going this way, and you're not going to see it coming. So you always keep your opponent in front of you, face your opponent, right?
Awesome.
I get excited about it.
How much of a psychological impact do attack dogs have on the enemy? That I can actually answer.
Oh yeah.
It scares the shit out of them.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it depends on who your enemy is, obviously, because different cultures have different fears of dogs. But yeah, attack dogs scare the piss because of attack.
Can I say something? I actually was on a drug bust down in Central or South America somewhere years ago. We got up on his house. Of course, you know, they can't afford the alarm systems like here. So their alarm system is a dog.
Yeah.
So when you get in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
they come after you, right? They're trained, right? These druggies. And so when you hear dogs barking, you've already been compromised.
Yeah.
And we hit this door. And I want to say, you know what an IA drill is, right? An immediate action drill. You know, you're walking down, you get ambushed. What do?
Return fire.
You attack. You return fire. In the American extension fighting, I have drills to return fire. We hit this door, and all I saw was dog teeth, and I didn't have time to get scared, and my muzzle went straight in his mouth, and I started hollering like, "Ah!" You know, and this dog was whimpering up underneath the bed. Yeah, can they be scary? A human being can be scary if you allow them to get scared. Remember what I said, self-offense? How quick can you turn your defense to an offense? If you hesitate, if you wait, that dog's gonna be the most horrifying thing in the world. Yeah. But if you're walking down the street, that dog, they get scared like we do.
Yeah.
In Iraq, there were times where we had dog handlers out there with us, and you just crack open the door, just like take like a pry bar, pry like the door open this much, and send the dog in ahead of the assaulters. And you got to be careful how you use the dogs though, because if, you know, for instance, like the guy's running, you got a squirter guy running off the objective, and you cut the dog loose to go chase him. If a ranger walks in between the dog and that guy, that bad guy, the dog's gonna fixate on them. And I was told the same thing by the Navy dudes who train dolphins. They're like, when we set the attack dolphins out in the water, like if you're not part of the exercise, you need to get the fuck out of the water, because they will fuck you up.
Now, see, I have seen dogs like weave their way through. Weave their way through not only U.S. soldiers but indigenous soldiers.
That's pretty interesting.
To go after.
They're well-trained dogs.
Yeah, to go after the bad. Like it knew who the bad guy was. And I'll tell you what. You want to talk about terror? When you have an IR camera on a dog and like you're watching the screen, and that dog goes into an almost pitch black room where, you know, the bad guys are waiting and they can't see anything. And this dog comes up and starts attacking them. You want to watch somebody freak the fuck out.
I would love to see.
It's like holy terror, because these dogs like they're aware. Like they
can see in the dark.
They creep.
Oh, they'll creep. They'll creep.
No shit.
Oh yeah.
Like the cartoon.
Like they, you know, sometimes they'll go in and bubble up, but sometimes like they'll go in and stop and get and assess, and they'll creep.
That is where you get on one of these games like Black Ops.
Oh yeah, and you're like, oh my god.
And you guys are sitting there eating popcorn.
Oh my god,
the creepers.
Yeah.
These were the Belgian Malinois.
The Malinois, yeah, which are fierce.
So yeah, I mean that attack mode of mine, you don't see it when you see me and when you talk to me in the streets.
Yeah.
I'm a nice guy all the time. In my not that far past, people used to say Jim West is like a human IED. You touch him, he explodes. And I try to impart that through training to people I do work with, and I do have technical training aspects which most people don't experience that will teach you how to explode just like that.
So for your own, like when you decide to strike preemptively, if you do. Like at what point, what triggers you? Like what tells you it's go time? If it's a preemptive strike, if somebody's not attacking you, but if you go, this is going down.
So first and foremost, I'm really good at diffusing this stuff, you know, because I don't get excited. I don't show intent at all. You know, I may have some really bad intent, but I don't show it.
Yeah.
I just, you know, I act like it's just another day at the park, you know, but. And of all these hundreds of fights I've been in, most of them somebody's hit me first. Usually with a beer bottle or something. The few times I have hit somebody, when you realize it's going down, I'll be honest, in my youth, sometimes I wanted it to go down and just fire it away.
Sure.
But as I got a little older and a little more responsible, I'll give you an example. I was talking to a guy one day, and right and wrong or indifferent, I don't know. But if you encroach into my personal space, I can't see your hands anymore. And to me, to me, I'm already under assault.
Yeah.
Because I was talking to this guy, and it was at the old stadium many years ago, 35 years ago maybe. And I'm drinking my beer, and I'm sitting there minding my business. And this guy said, "Oh, Jim West," starts asking all these questions about fighting and stuff. And, some people like to encroach like a car salesman. And I'm like, please, I like this distance, right? And he's just, yeah, I got it. He keeps coming. Yeah, I study this and I do that. I kept stepping backwards. I don't want him to spit in my face. I don't want, all this stuff is part of the real deal, right? So I will always put something between you and me. In this case, with my little beer bottle. And I'm sitting there like this. So I'm already thinking, he won't back up. I don't know what his intent is. I don't know the guy. And I've been sucker punched a number of times, normally with a beer bottle. And I took a step back, and there was a pinball machine right behind me. I go, okay, so I'm not backing up anymore. I said, could you please keep your distance? He goes, oh, so that's how you are. He takes a step forward. I go, boop, and clipped him in the bottom of his chin with a beer bottle. It caught him so much by surprise, and hit him right on the bone. It's nothing but nerve and bone. Hair goes back. He stumbles over a step, falls down. Oh, I see how you are. I said, no. I said, that's just an introduction. Yeah. There's another me that you don't want to know. I ask you respectfully to keep your distance. So why don't you do that?
That's the hors d'oeuvre.
Yeah, right. That's the hors d'oeuvre.
That ain't the steak.
I remember you told me that story about the guy in Applebee's who tried to, he's like some Marine or something, tried to start a fight with you.
Well, it wasn't Marine. It was it was sitting at the bar. I just got there first night in town, Tuesday night, family night. And I go, new in the area, I sit down, I order myself a tilapia. Over here were all the guys from military base, the younger guys. And over here were all the guys that look like retirees, and then I sat close to the guy, right, like this close, bar stool, with the back on it, was sitting there. They're arguing about, is Egypt in Africa or the Middle East? And, they're going to guys, hey, you look like a military guy. So I used to be. I'm trying to, I don't want to be bothered. I just want to do my thing and leave. And then this guy was drunk, obviously, and he kept messing with me. He goes, hi. He said, what did you do? I said, well, I'm retired out of the Army, Special Forces guy. Oh, man, I want to buy you a drink. I want to buy you a shot. You got to drink a shot. And I'm like, I don't want a shot, but I appreciate it. He goes, no, man, I insist on it. I'm thinking, well, I'm new in town, I said, typically me and shots have a bad ending. I really appreciate, just maybe I'll drink a second beer or something. No, man, whatever you want. I said, just get along. People starting to look right there. Just get along. I'll drink. I have one with you. What do you want? I said, let's do a shot of Patron. Tequila. He's like, hey, bartender. And she's still a friend of mine today, by the way. Name's Nikki. Says, I want 2 double shots of tequila right here.
Now he's like a Jim.
Right? Yeah. Okay. So she sits him down. I want to drink. He picks up a shot, and I pick up mine. He goes, I want to drink to your successful military career or something. I'm like, okay. So we cheered, and I do like this, and he sat his down. All the red lights came on. I'm like, that's a little fucked up. And so I gave mine down, I put it down, I put my hand behind his, and I pushed it back to him and said, no, brother, you got to do what you said. And when I did that, he takes his right hand, boom, punches me right in the face, and my feet on the lower rung of the bar stool. So I just planted myself, I tucked my chin, started pushing him off. And as I was looking down, I noticed the bar stool coming off the ground. So I did what I call a push punch. I just caught him in overhand right, knocked him out in the bar stool. It was horrible. He goes over backwards, his ear hits the chair on the way to the floor, ripped off half his ear, and his head goes into the floor and split his skull open. He's bleeding out on the floor. I thought I was going to jail for life.
On fucking family night, Jim.
Family
Jesus
night.
Christ.
Yeah, I didn't get in trouble. The cops did come.
Can't take you anywhere.
Yeah. And
Did the bartender see everything?
Yeah, well, so the security cameras.
Okay.
So the little manager comes out, and I was getting ready to go do some damage, but I only hit him once, and I was going to follow up. I believe in following up.
You're getting ready to do it? Sounds like you did something.
Do a little dance. No, I was just getting warmed up. And that's the danger of getting knocked out. You don't know what's happening, right? Yeah. So anyway, this little manager comes out. You're going to jail. I've already called the police. I'm like, okay. So I stopped, I went back to the bar where my beer was, I pulled my wallet out, took my ID card, sat there, I started drinking my beer, and everybody's like, what the hell are you doing? I said, well, when I go to jail, I'm gonna finish my beer, you know? So, cops came, took my ID card, looked at him, the EMS came, he looked like a mummy, this guy almost died. And the cop comes back out, he's the captain, chief of police, whatever, and hands back my ID card, hands me his business card and says, would you like to press charges? I said, what are you talking about? I said, where am I anyway, right? And he says, oh, this guy has history. I said, really? He's not the first time he's done that. We reviewed the security cameras, and looks like he hit you and you just hit him one time in self-defense. That's pretty much the story. And that was great.
I mean, so many stories, and we just scratched the surface today. We didn't even really get into like your military career at all. But I mean, I think we've gone like, shit, this is like 2.5 hours. So
Yeah.
You probably got to get back home because you start early days, right?
Yeah. I've got to go back to work still.
Well, what time do you wake up in the morning?
About 3:30.
Yeah. So it's a long day for you.
Sleep is not my friend.
But thank you everyone for tuning in the middle of your work day and all that.
Thank you, Jack, for having me.
Thanks for coming out, Jim. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, man.
You know you're welcome on anytime. You know, I love having you on, and I think the people, the audience, loves hearing from you as well.
Well, I enjoy the questions because I honestly, I think with just the fight itself, you know, that there's so many experts out there, it's hard to navigate your way through what's real.
Yeah. There's so much information out there.
Right, and I'm honest to God, in my opinion, one of the few people that has touched, you know, the street fighting world the way I have. The martial arts, I mean, I'm a 10th degree black belt grandmaster, and I've got my own martial arts system, which has been sanctioned by the best in the world, and I've got all the military background. You know, I'm a combat veteran, special forces guy. I was in the 82nd before that. You know, I mean, I've paid a lot of dues along the way, and I found a way to bring it to a spot where I think I'd like to at least believe that what I'm telling you is real.
Yeah.
You know, you've been enough fights, been enough experience to know that, you know, like the question, I thought was a good question, the 65-inch arm reach. It has nothing to do with nothing, to be honest. The power of the punch is right here, wherever it is. And I think you can line a bunch of people up here and they would try to talk about arm length instead of where the power really is. You know, and bringing that experience to bear, I really like the questions, and it's fun.
Yeah, and this is one of the advantages to like doing this as a live stream is that the audience can directly participate and ask the guest whatever they want. So yeah, super cool, man. And when your fight manual, your street fight book comes out, come back on and we'll go like in depth and talk about it.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it'd be great. And yeah, Dave and I can flip through it, and then we'll have some questions lined up for you.
I'm ready.
And thank you again, all the viewers, all the listeners. For those who listen to the podcast, I will post the link for the SoundCloud and for all that other stuff to Jim's book on Amazon. I'll put that stuff all in the description. Please remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and hit that bell for notifications.
Yeah. Also, share the video because once we get to 10,000 subscribers, Jack said he'd get in the ring with Jim. And if you want to see that live stream, get us to 10,000 subscribers.
And Dave will do full frontal.
If I may, there's no benefit for a young guy to get in the ring with me because if he wins, he whooped an old man. And if he loses, he got whooped by an old man. So it's a lose-lose situation.
Well, I mean, I will do that. If we get to 10,000 subscribers, hell, we don't even have to. I will get into the ring with Jim. You just have to not kill me.
No,
that's all I ask.
No, we're not going to give that much away.
You can't promise that.
And please support the stream on Patreon if you can. It's patreon.com/ I think it's just Murphy's Law Stream.
How'd you spell Patreon?
Patreon.com. And so I'll post the link. I think I already posted it in the comments, and I'll put it again in the description. It's patreon.com/ Murphy's Law Stream. We're gonna, as I mentioned in the beginning of the stream, we're gonna change the name of it to something that's a little less self-centered. It's we put it to the Patreon supporters to vote on, and they like the Team House as the name. So that's gonna be the name going forward, but for now it is what it is. And all you guys who have been supporting us on Patreon already, thank you for doing that. We really appreciate it. We're moving towards our goals, it's really cool. And I think it's fucking awesome to have dudes like you coming on in studio, and we're just gonna continue building it from there.
Yeah, and I mean, we want to have you back on soon, and we'll focus more on the military stuff because we have a lot of people very interested in that.
Sure.
You know.
I mean, I thought that was a good military question about how you train for,
Yeah.
you know, because, and the takeaways are, you know, get the right equipment, get
Yeah.
the right shoes,
100%.
use different terrain, day, night, rain, you know, just
Yep.
go for it.
Yeah. So again, thanks guys. Share the video with your friends.
Thanks, sir.
Share the podcast with your friends.
Jack, thank you.
Hey, anytime, Jim. Always welcome. And we will see you guys next time.